Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen loses $200,000 in a scam and expects to be reimbursed for it. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my sister $200,000 from our parents' inheritance after she got scammed? I, 34 male, recently inherited $400,000 from our parents' estate after they passed away. There was a slight delay in my receiving the amount because of some legal complications. My younger sister, who's 31, received the same amount, but just months after their passing, she was swindled out of nearly half of her life savings by a shady investment scheme. Now she's asking me to share $200,000 of my inheritance with her to help her get back on her feet. She argues that our parents would have wanted us to have equal financial standing, that losing her money wasn't her fault. Yeah, right. And that she'd pay me back later. I feel terrible for her, but I don't think it's fair to have me give up half of my inheritance for a mistake that she made, no matter how unfortunate it is. I've been working hard, budgeting, and planning to use this money for my family's future. If I give her half, it puts my own financial security at risk. My wife supports my decision, but some relatives think that I'm being greedy and heartless. Am I the jerk? Edit. Wow, this blew up. I didn't think I'd need online strangers to knock sense into me. Also, it's funny how quickly someone can go from calling every hour to a direct block. I called my sister and asked her to explain exactly what happened, telling her I'd only give her the money if she told me the truth and only the truth. She told me that she invested in some company and paid her deposit of $10,000 the first time, then she got back $20,000. Then she began scaling up and always got double until $100,000. She got back $110,000, then she was emboldened and invested $300,000 and was guaranteed $600,000 in return. The rest is history. She made a police report but had no evidence to share, and she withdrew in cash and dealt in cash itself, taking only token receipts, which were fake. She kept the previously received amount in cash at her house. I only came to know how stupid someone can get. I told her that her lack of basic common sense and greed does not constitute grounds for charity on my part, and I told her to take better care of the remaining $100K. She lost it on me and told me that I disappointed our parents. As for my relatives, I told them all in the group chat that I'd only match whatever they would pay to my sister and even offered to double it since I was so greedy and wanted to prove them wrong. They went off on me too. They're all blocked now. They told me that the money went straight to my head. Not the jerk. If she had taken her $400K and immediately doubled it in her investment scheme, would she have given you the $200K so that you both would have had equal financial standing like your parents wanted? Your parents did provide you with equal financial standing. What they apparently fell short on is in providing you with equal intellectual standing. Your sister is an idiot, first for blowing $400K, and second for thinking it should be your problem. Probably also third for thinking that she's going to take the $200K and somehow turn it into $400K so that she can pay you back. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for not helping my parents since I'm not legally required to do so? My parents saved money for my siblings and I to go to college. My two older siblings used the money, attended the local college, and have started families. They had to work part-time jobs to pay for social activities and other expenses. I'm the youngest, and I received a full-ride scholarship to a great school. I asked my parents if I could use the college fund for other expenses since my education was covered. They set me down and explained that the money was only for education-related expenses, and since I didn't need it, they weren't legally obligated to give it to me. They said it wouldn't be fair since my brother and sister had to work during school if I got money for goofing around. I tried to explain that I had studied much harder than they had and that my education wasn't costing them a cent, not even for room and board. However, they wouldn't budge. They used the money to take the family, including me, or so they thought, to Disney World and to renovate their home. I told them I wouldn't be joining them on that vacation. I left home when I graduated from high school. My uncle got me a job as a welder's helper for the summer. I gave up my summer, but made enough that I wouldn't have to work during the school year. All the guys I worked with thought I was nuts to give up pipeline money to go to university. The welder I was working with actually gave me a $2,000 gift at the end of the summer. He said he gave me the job as a favor for my uncle and that he thought I would quit in a few days. He was impressed that I had worked so hard for the whole summer. I did this for the next 2 summers as well. I had a great time in school with my friends and professors, and then in the summers, I worked with a bunch of hardcore blue-collar guys who were earning more than most people. I didn't cut my family off or go no contact or anything. I just didn't have a lot of free time. When I was in school, I was busy keeping my grades up, and in the summer, I was working. I really only saw my parents at Christmas, and one year I went to my girlfriend's parents' house for Christmas. I got a co-op job the summer before my 4th year. It led to a job offer contingent on me graduating, which I did. I then went to work in some really cool places. I've been from the high Arctic to Africa, Australia, and South America. I don't have a wife or kids. My current lifestyle isn't really conducive to a great relationship. I work and travel a lot. I've been at it for 10 years now. I'm making more than the pipeline welders, doing a much cleaner job that utilizes my brain. I still miss the camaraderie of hanging out with the boys, but those 3 summers gave me a great grounding in how guys in the field think, which has helped my career. The last time I talked to my parents, they asked if I could help them out since they want to retire early and they know that I'm doing well. I also want to retire early, so I don't really want to give away my nest egg. I asked them how much my brother and sister were giving them. They said that they had families and couldn't really afford to help. I said it wouldn't be fair for me to give them money since neither of my siblings were, and since I wasn't legally obligated to do so, I wouldn't be doing it. They're upset with me for being stingy and holding a grudge, but I don't think I am. I didn't ask them for a penny after I left home. I didn't ask them to pay for my travel when I came home for Christmas. Nothing. I've been paying for my own life since I was 18. I should add that they aren't working at back-breaking jobs or anything. They're teachers. My brother is a teacher, and my sister is a social worker. I'm an engineer. Not the jerk. They taught you that financial help is discretionary. Tell them that it wouldn't be fair for you to pay for them to goof around while other people have to work, and then take yourself off to Disney World. Not the jerk. Instead of using that money for a family vacation, they should have put the money towards their retirement. The other thing you can throw back at them, since they want to retire early, is that you don't want to give them money just for goofing around. If you don't like it, then leave. Okay, I will. We've got the Karen manager, store manager, meat manager, and grocery manager. This story takes place about 2 months before I quit my job at the grocery store and started my first year of college. I was glad when I got to put my Karen manager in her place. Things had slowly started to cool down, and for the next few months it was business as usual. The old store manager had to open another store, so they brought in a new one. This one was very professional and pretty kind. The store manager always recognized various employees in different departments for their hard work. This recognition of us lower employees made our Karen manager less than happy. I started to notice a lot more people being hired, and everyone's hours suffered because of it. I found out later they did this because part-time employees could be paid less and they wanted to cut costs, such as the life of a retail worker. I wanted to keep making money in preparation for college, so I went into Karen manager's office and said, "Hey, Karen manager, I noticed my hours were being cut and I wanted to see if I could pick up some extra shifts." She scoffed at me and said, "It's a department-wide decision. If you want hours, go to another department. I wouldn't waste your time, though." I looked at her confused and asked, "Well, why not?" Karen, "They only have hardworking employees in their departments. You wouldn't fit in." I was dumbfounded. I thought Karen's BS bully routine was over, but boy was I wrong. I stood there unsure of what to say, while Karen manager had another umbrage smile plastered on her face. I just turned around and walked out of her office. I don't know if Karen manager had already lied to the other managers or not, but I might as well ask. I first went to the meat department and explained my situation. I told the manager that our department's hours were being cut and asked if I could do anything to help them out. The meat manager smiled warmly and said, "I understand how frustrating low hours can be. We have a guy on vacation for a few weeks, and we've had to stay late to wash all the pans and plates for our meat. It's simple washing and drying. You get to wear headphones within reason, and you would make what a starting meat associate would. Want the job?" I was beaming and immediately took the offer. The job was as simple as he promised, and I took it seriously. I wanted to show other managers that I was a hard worker and reliable. 3 weeks passed by with no issues. Inevitably, their missing associate came back, and I had to be let go from that position. Luckily, I had spoken to the grocery manager the day before, and our conversation was somewhat similar. I explained my situation, and she understood. She said, "You just need to tidy up the shelves, put our products on aisle-labeled carts, and help unload trucks when they get here. Your pay will be starting grocery associate pay." For context, both types of associate pay were an increase from my normal department. I took the offer and immediately helped the grocery department. Everything was fine until grocery hired a full-time employee and I had to go back to my normal department. I expected business as usual, but I got one heck of a surprise. The first day back, Karen manager yanked me into her office. The conversation went like this. What do you think you're doing, OP? I told you our department's hours were cut. Me. I know. You said I could try working with other departments. You also said some other nasty things, but I don't care to repeat those. She glared at me and said, OP, you are making our department look bad. We're trying to cut costs, and you're burning through hours we don't have. I decided to correct this smug Karen, and I said, I understand you want to cut costs, and you only have so many hours. I didn't take up any extra hours from our department. I took your rude suggestion and worked for other departments that were short-staffed and had an abundance of hours. I did nothing wrong. She growled at me and said, Listen, OP, it's not fair to others in our department if you get full-time and other employees don't. I held my ground and said, This system of hiring tons of part-time workers is stupid, and it's hurting quality full-time employees who need the hours. If you insist on hiring all these people, there's nothing stopping them from doing exactly what I did. There are plenty of departments that could use help. I was fed up with Karen's attitude and I spoke my mind. Karen, if you think my management practice is so ridiculous, you can just leave. I was tired of her BS and I just smiled. Okay, I will. I turned in my effects and I clocked out. I said goodbye to my friends and I drove home. The next day, I was enjoying sleeping in for once when I got a phone call. It was the new store manager. I answered. Hi, store manager. How are you this morning? Store manager. Sorry to bother you, OP, but could you come back to the store? I looked over the firing of you yesterday, and Karen manager was totally out of line. I talked to other managers you have worked for, and they all had glowing reviews of your work. We're pretty short-staffed, and we need you back. I smiled. It was always nice to be needed, after all. If you transfer me to grocery effective immediately, with the pay bump to boot, I'll help your department when needed. But I want grocery manager as my new boss. Store manager. Done. I just pulled up your file and transferred you over. You have my word. Grocery manager is your new boss, and Karen manager has no authority over you anymore. I'll be having a long talk with her over her managerial practices, believe me. I smirked and said, I'll see you in 10 minutes. I drove to the store and walked in. I picked up my effects from the store manager and shook his hand. I saw the shocked look on Karen manager's face and I snickered. I turned to a nearby customer with a smile. These last few weeks were going to be the best. Am I the jerk for ruining my sister's honeymoon? Mom and Dad got divorced when my sister Sam and I were 13 and 10. That was 12 years ago. My father was a cheater and he still is. He's now on his 4th marriage. Mom met her boyfriend George a year after the divorce, but she kept it a secret and didn't introduce us to him until 2 years later, when she was sure that he was the one. That was the happiest I had ever seen my mother in a relationship. She's always been a happy and bubbly person. Sam hated George with all her might because she loves our father very much and was heartbroken that Mom moved on. My sister never forgave my mom for it and threatened to cut contact if Mom didn't dump her boyfriend. My mom did. Afterward, my mom was very depressed and down, but my sister and Dad were happy. Then my sister left for college a few months later. I know for a fact that my mom started seeing her boyfriend again a year ago and she's been happy again. My sister got married last weekend and yesterday we had lunch before she and her husband were to leave for their honeymoon. When I arrived, she was a bit down. Apparently, she had asked Mom to join us, but Mom declined. So she opened up, saying that since Mom dumped her boyfriend, she's been very distant and cold with my sister. Never rude, mean, or angry, just cold. If my sister asked her anything or needed something, Mom would be there for her, like when my sister got sick. But other than that, she never contacted my sister on her own volition. My sister was telling me that maybe Mom will never be happy again because of ending her relationship. I told her not to worry about it because they're still seeing each other behind our backs and that Mom seems very happy. My sister was shocked and she started yelling in the middle of the restaurant and tried to call Mom to ask her. Then she called me a jerk for never telling her before now. I just never thought it was a secret that I was hiding, just a private matter, and I thought my sister knew too. How couldn't she realize that Mom has been happy again and has been going away on weekends? My sister is now demanding that Mom break up with her boyfriend or she'll go no contact. I feel like a jerk for everything, including miscalculating that my sister still has the same stance. Update 10 days later. So my mom and George are getting married, and none of us are invited. It's just some of their closest friends, George's kids, and their parents. They're getting married in September and moving to another city. She sent my sister a letter telling her that this time she was the one asking for no contact. She said she had done her job and raised 2 well-adjusted and happy daughters, and she believes her duties are fulfilled. Now that we're all adults, my mom wants space and peace and doesn't want to be dragged into any more drama. She wished my sister would stop being like her father, believing all people are her property and puppets. She told my sister that after taking the same amount of time to reflect, they could maybe reconsider their relationship. She wrote, "If it takes you 5 years to be a decent human, then take another 5 years to make sure and reflect, and maybe we can consider reconnecting. Until then, I wish you the best life, but I don't want to be a part of it." She didn't write any letter to me and told me that we could always keep in touch. We talk about 5 times a week, and I'm welcome to visit and stay with her and her husband anytime I want to. I'm not sure how to feel. My sister is the one who hurt her, and yet she only decided to move on once she made sure my sister was happily married. But what about me? So dad cheats, runs off, and expects mom to suffer for it for the rest of her life? Sister is his minion and thinks she has the right to control mom's life? Mom creates a better life, and both of them are attempting to reestablish their control over mom. It's telling that mom did not invite OP to her wedding due to telling sister, and restarting the harassment is likely the reason. Am I the jerk for kicking my mother-in-law out of my house because she won't stop complaining about my daughter's name? Both my husband and I are from Latin America. We moved to the UK shortly after we had our eldest, who's 5. Our daughter, who turns 1 in April, was born here. My mother-in-law, who's in her 60s, and my husband's older brother, who's 37, neither of whom have met our daughter before, are flying over for her birthday. Brother-in-law wanted to get a hotel room for himself, and since mother-in-law doesn't speak any English, we decided to have her stay at our place instead of leaving her alone in a foreign country. Years ago, when I was pregnant with my son, my husband and I made the mistake of revealing his name to our families. My mother-in-law spent the next few months complaining about it. She sent us lists of name suggestions, looked up bad historical figures with the same name as the one we had chosen, and just generally said it was awful. She didn't stop until our son was born and the name was on his birth certificate. So for my second pregnancy, we decided to keep our daughter's name a secret until after her birth. We figured that not knowing her name until it was unchangeable would stop mother-in-law from complaining. We were wrong. Our daughter's name is Cecilia. Minutes after she was born, my mother-in-law called my husband and asked, "You know Cecilia means blind, right?" Almost a year later, she hasn't stopped complaining. If it's not because of the meaning, it's because it's ugly, long, or an old lady name. There have been occasions when my husband sent pictures of her to his family's group chat, and his mom replied with comments like, "How cute. Too bad her name is Cecilia." It genuinely feels like my daughter is being bullied. Whenever we talk to my mother-in-law, which has been happening less and less lately for this reason, she has a new complaint. Up until now, the main reason I was able to tune it out was because she hadn't complained to us in person or in front of our kids. But she'll be here in less than 2 weeks, and I'm absolutely certain she'll continue her crusade in our home. I don't want to hear it. I don't want my son to hear it, and I don't want my baby's first birthday to be ruined by grandma's complaining. So a couple of months ago, my husband and I called his mom. We told her she could no longer stay with us and asked her to have brother-in-law help her get a hotel room. We also explained the reasons behind our decision. Mother-in-law cried on the phone and has called us several times since. She either apologizes, calls us dramatic, or accuses us of alienating her from her grandkids. Throughout all of this, she continues to insist she has the right to dislike our daughter's name and still hasn't booked a hotel room. My brother-in-law agrees she's being difficult, but is upset that we told her she can no longer stay at our place. He's accusing us of forcing an elderly woman to stay alone in a foreign country, even though we're perfectly capable of housing her. He's also mad that after promising for months that mother-in-law could stay at our house, we're retracting our offer. This whole situation has been exhausting, and I'm starting to worry I might be overreacting. Am I the jerk? Update. For the next couple of weeks after my first post, mother-in-law continued her attempts to convince us to let her stay with us, but she still refused to book a hotel room. My husband and I decided to speak with brother-in-law again. He told us that the main reason he wanted to get a hotel room for himself was to explore the city on his own, but he understood why we didn't want mother-in-law to stay with us anymore. Eventually, he agreed to help her get a different room at the hotel where he'd stay. From what I gather, he also spent the weeks leading up to the visit telling his mother that if she tried complaining about Cecilia's name at any point, he would call a taxi to send her back to the hotel. Cecilia's birthday went off without a hitch, except for the fact that mother-in-law immediately tried to give her a nickname. For a few hours, she kept calling her Lila. She was doing so behind our backs, and my husband and I didn't realize it until our son came to us to ask if Grandma knew Cece's name. My brother-in-law offered to call the taxi, but we decided to brush it off. Later, my husband pulled mother-in-law aside and said that if she ever tried to complain about either of our kids again, she wouldn't get to visit us anymore. She behaved herself until she and brother-in-law flew back home, and we haven't heard any complaints from her since. I'm very satisfied with this outcome, though I'm still worried she'll complain about my kids again in the future. I now know that we have my husband's brother by our side, which will greatly help us navigate our relationship with their mother. I just don't understand people like this. I have a nephew whose name I do not like at all. It's absolutely not to my taste, and I find the spelling my sister chose very dumb. You know what I call him? His name, which is always spelled the way my sister chose on every single birthday card. I don't think my sister even knows that I don't like his name, and I know he certainly doesn't. I dislike most of the names of the next generation in my family, a fact that absolutely no one knows because I'm not a psycho. Am I the jerk for telling my mom to never touch my stuff again after she lost my Louis Vuitton bag? Okay, so I, 15 female, have always wanted a Louis Vuitton purse. I've always wanted something expensive as my own, as all of my things are hand-me-downs from my older sisters, as we're not the richest of people. Eventually, I decided that if I wanted my purse, I'd get it myself, so I got a job at a local restaurant and started saving up my money. While I worked, I looked at purses and decided that I liked a little bag. It was expensive, but after a few months, I had the money. I quickly went and bought the bag. I didn't even let my family touch it when I got home. I didn't even wear it for the first week, as I was too scared to damage it one day. One day after school, I came back home and I went into my room to look at my bag, but when I got in there, it was gone from the place on my desk. I looked around my room to see if I'd moved it and just forgot, but I couldn't find it. I went out and asked my sisters, but they said that they hadn't touched it, so I went and found my mom. I asked her if she'd seen my bag, and she said that she'd shown it to her friend and her friend had liked it and asked if she could borrow it. My mom said yes. I hadn't even used it yet, so to say the least, I wasn't very pleased by this. I blew up at my mom, telling her not to touch my stuff, and she said that her friend would be okay with it and I was being overly dramatic. I was grounded and told to stay in my room since I was acting like a child over a bag. The next day, I asked my mom about the bag and she got an uncomfortable look on her face. Instantly, I knew something was wrong. She wouldn't say anything, but after a while, she finally admitted that her friend had lost the bag and she didn't plan on replacing it. I was furious. I exploded at her, saying that she and her friend shouldn't have touched it in the first place and to never touch my things again. I also said some other hurtful things that I don't care to repeat. I ended up making her cry, and my sisters are calling me a jerk because it was just a bag and I was being dramatic. So, am I the jerk? Dude, your mom sold your bag. Your mother's friend didn't borrow it. Your mother stole it and sold it to her. Your mother is a dirty, lying thief. You are not the jerk. I would make sure you separate your bank account ASAP because she will take your wages when you have too much saved. I haven't tipped in the last 3 years, and I don't give a hoot. I live in SoCal, on the coast about 2 hours northwest of LA. The tipping culture here is rampant. It's truly disgusting to me that franchises and big corps put it on the customer to pay their workers a living wage. I refuse to participate in this system. Pay your employees more. What's that? You mean your employees prefer getting tips because they make significantly more than getting a bump in their pay? Yeah, forget that. I literally never tip. Not at coffee shops, sit-down restaurants, counter workers, or food delivery. I just don't give a hoot. If you give me the choice, I'm obviously not going to tip. Edit. I seem to have upset a lot of people and I'm being downvoted into oblivion. Second edit. These comments have been pretty enlightening. From what I can deduce, I lack empathy, and I'm a huge jerk for not tipping. Another thing I realized is that a lot of people in the service industry are making pretty decent money. I'd wager around $30 to $40 an hour solely on tips that are not taxed. There seems to be a significant backlash from service workers on being paid a decent hourly wage. I assume this is because they would make significantly less than what they did in tips. Another point I want to touch on is how most of these service workers are completely deflecting all blame on the customers who don't tip, as opposed to greedy business owners who refuse to pay them a decent wage. Why as a customer am I expected to pay for my food, my drinks, and also the wages of your service staff? I can't think of another industry that works like this. Can you? Anyways, I'll leave it at that. Forget tipping and these greedy corporations and these greedy servers too. Some businesses are trying to start tipping here in New Zealand. They can buzz right off with that noise. Australia too. Why the heck do we need tips if our minimum wage is $24? I'm also in Australia. Had a friend from the US come visit, and I told him never to tip here in Australia. We don't do it, and businesses are trying to turn it into a thing. So if you get asked, always say no. When he went to pay for his drink, the machine popped up and asked him how much he wanted to tip, and the bartender stood there just watching. He asked me what he should do. I guess Americans feel bad about not tipping, even after everything I said. So I reached over and clicked 0 and said, "We don't tip in Australia." The problem we have is that we are forced to tip for doing the minimum. You did your job? Great, here's 20%. What I really don't get is not tipping, but the percentage of the tip. If I order a $50 steak, why would I tip more than if I had ordered a $10 salad? The waiter put in the same amount of work. I can't bring myself to do the same, but I completely understand your frustration and I agree with you. At bottom, tipping is a sort of panhandling. The service workers and the customers understand that the system is messed up and tipping is needed to remedy that. So both sides understand that the quality of service no longer really correlates with the tip itself. I just came back from Japan, where customer service puts the US to shame. And yet, try to tip a restaurant worker and they'll think it's unnecessary and rude, and will probably bristle with contempt at our quaint American custom, and they'd be right. Pay service workers a living wage and get rid of this humiliating game that, once upon a time, probably made rich people feel good when dealing with the plebs. This cancerous system is slowly creeping into the UK under the name service charge. It's honestly disgusting seeing how much a restaurant can make and not pay their workers. It's truly sad, but instead of placing their anger where it should be placed, people who come in catch the heat. American tipping culture is borderline brainwashing. How so many people have been convinced into thinking it's the customer's fault or responsibility when a worker doesn't earn enough to live is utterly insane. A tip, by definition, is a choice at the customer's discretion for when they feel the member of staff went above and beyond expectations. Simply doing your job doesn't warrant a 20% tip. And the fact that this is somehow specific to certain jobs as opposed to certain wages. Oh, you tip at McDonald's? You tip the bus driver? The person working the checkout when you do your weekly shop? Absolutely ridiculous. Stepmother stole my Xbox, so I called the cops on her. My stepmother and my father are extremely overbearing. They think my boyfriend is not competent just because he's a young dad. My age is 19, my boyfriend is 20. Our kid is 4 months. My parents are constantly nagging my boyfriend about how he parents our baby. They especially hate how he plays GTA in the same room as him. I don't see why it's a big deal, because it's not like our kid is even gonna watch it. On Halloween, we had a ton of people over, including friends and family. Sometime during the party, my boyfriend's Xbox vanished. After the party, we texted all the guests asking if they knew where it went. My lovely stepmother said she took it to her house so that boyfriend would no longer be able to play GTA in front of her grandson. She refused to return it to us. I called the police department and a cop made her return it. Everyone is saying that I'm just freaking out over something small. Even my boyfriend said that getting the cops involved was dramatic. Was I making a mountain out of a molehill? Am I the jerk for getting the police involved after I got into a car accident? So I, female 36, was on my way home from work yesterday. I drive a RAV SUV, and the road I was on was a 4-lane road, 2 one way and 2 the other, just off the interstate. I had pulled into the left lane, which after a couple miles becomes a left turn lane, and in the right lane next to me was a smaller car. I didn't think anything of it when they sped up, but when they cut across my lane and were trying to U-turn, which because of where we were at the time was not only illegal, but really dangerous, and I slammed my brakes, but unfortunately I couldn't stop in time. I ended up slamming into the side of the other driver's car. As we were both stopped in the middle of the road, I got out of my car and went to check on the other driver and their passenger. They were teenagers, a boy and a girl. I asked if they were okay, and thankfully no one was hurt. They got out of their car and looked at the damage on their car and mine, and I was already calling 911. Luckily, there was an off-duty EMT from the local fire department behind us, so he turned the lights on in his truck and pulled up to check on us. He had seen the whole thing. The kids begged me not to get the police involved because the boy that was driving would lose his license and offered to pay me off so they could leave. I was shook and trying to stay as calm as I could. This is where I might be the jerk. When they were begging me not to call the police, I sternly told them no, and that the accident needed to be reported and that I needed the report from my insurance company. The kids started freaking out, and the girl called her father and told them a Karen was calling the cops on them. The boy was just sitting in his car and barely said a word. When the state trooper showed up, he gathered our licenses and registration and asked what had happened. The EMT and I explained that the kids had cut in front of me, and I told him how they had tried to pay me off so they could go, and the kids admitted to trying to pull a U-turn because they got off on the wrong exit. The cop chewed them out for reckless driving and pulling an illegal U-turn and went to his car to run the licenses. The father of the girl shows up not long after and doesn't say a word to me, which was fine by me, but stares daggers at me while taking pictures of the front of my car. After the trooper was done, he goes over to the kids and gives them a copy of the accident report and tickets the driver, then gives me a copy of the report. Thankfully, they were insured, so I can have my insurance company deal with that. The damage to my car wasn't as bad as theirs. It was drivable, but it still busted up the front right side enough to need repair. Plus, as I was getting closer to home, I started smelling something burning, so I had to stop and have it towed to the dealership repair garage. My car isn't even 6 months old. Update. Just finished up with getting a repair estimate from my dealership body shop. I'm looking at around a $3,000 repair job. I spoke with my insurance company and they helped me file a claim with the kids' insurance company. Just waiting on the company to give me a call back because they need to send one of their adjusters out to look at my car as well before we can move forward with this. Wondered why my local coffee shop was low-staffed. Now I know why. I, 19 male, decided to quit my job and decided I wanted to work as a barista. So I started looking and found a good reviewed coffee shop close to my home. They were hiring, which I found odd considering it's a very good-looking shop that they got going. So I went in and met the owner. She gave me an interview and it went smoothly. Moving forward, first day on the job, they don't have a training course for newcomers like me who have absolutely no clue about coffee or the equipment. So the employees made me work on grinding espresso, making shots, crema, etc. It all went well. They were super nice to me throughout the process, grateful for it. So I wrote down everything they told me and watched. Second day, I did everything that I was taught to opening the lights, cleaning windows, cleaning tables, opening the cash register and counting the money in it, and opening the espresso machine, grinder, kettle, etc. I did it all correctly. It was just me and the owner because the employee that taught me yesterday had to get a surgery. Owner asked what I was taught yesterday, so I told her. She goes, "That's it?" I was a bit irritated by the way she said it. I thought I learned pretty well for a first-timer, but boy, was I about to be in for a wild ride. Customer walks in and asks for a cappuccino, so I did like any first-timer would do, pull out my trusty note and measure. But no, she said put it back and scolds me for not remembering. And for the whole entire day, she treats me like I'm a jerk for not knowing what I was doing. When I asked her to teach me the things I don't know, she was irritated. I was miserable. Sure, the employee taught me, but they didn't teach me everything. Third day, unsettling feelings start to come, but thankfully the owner wasn't there. Same routine goes, and I meet another employee, super nice and informative. And when I asked them questions, she would answer them instantly without hesitation and with pride. Customer came in and asked for a different extraction method, which I wasn't good at, and she knew that. So she told me to do the cash register. Everything goes buttery smooth, and when I pulled out my note to measure, she didn't judge me for it because we would remember things as we go. Fourth day, come to work early as I usually do to start my routine. I do everything they taught me. Owner walks in. My whole mood changed instantly. She asked me if I did my routine. I'm always an honest guy, so I told her yes. Doesn't believe me. Big Dumbo treatment comes. Scolding, scolding, scolding. I was miserable the entire day. She sees that I'm miserable and comes up to me and says, "You're not gonna quit on us, are you?" After saying that, she would walk back to where she came from and gossip, giggle right in front of my face. Like I could hear them talking about me. I've never had a problem with the customers or the employees. They're all so kind. But my problem is the boss. What should I do, guys? Is it my fault? What did I do wrong to deserve this? I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning to open her shop, clean, open, prepare espressos like they told me to. Edit. I never lied in the interview about how I knew how to make coffee. I was honest throughout the interview about how I don't know anything about coffee or the equipment needed to make it, because I needed them to teach me the things I don't know, and not just stand there like some jerk that watches other people do the work. Am I the jerk for buying my girlfriend fake perfume? I, 23, male, have dated my girlfriend, 19, female, for a little under a year now. I've come to love her a lot, and my love language is gift-giving. My girlfriend has always been the type of girl that's just hard not to love. She's the definition of magnetic. Guys always approach her, and understandably, she's a high-caliber girl. She could easily be anyone's dream girl. Looks amazing, and everything about her is feminine, down to her hands and how she comforts me or makes me food. She has an expensive look to her, but she does all her self-care herself and is amazingly cost-efficient about it. As a result, the kind of guys that go after her are usually trust fund babies or are highly ambitious, med school, law school, business startups, things like that, despite herself not being anywhere in that tax bracket. This isn't her fault because I've seen myself that she never entertains anyone, but she just has that effect on people. It makes me feel like less of a man because I'm nothing like those guys, and honestly, it makes me feel like a bum. One day, while walking past her computer, I noticed that she was looking at a designer perfume, and I told her I'll get it for her. She's adamant that she doesn't want me to get it for her and that she was just kind of daydreaming about it. She's literally never asked me for anything, but I wanted to show her that I can take care of her and spoil her too. I look into it, and the perfume is $300. What the heck? I don't see the point in something like that, but honestly, my pride would be hurt if I went back on my word. So I find the perfume for a much greater value on eBay. Today comes and I gift her the perfume. She unwraps the present, sprays it on her hand to smell it, and her face is a blank expression, like she's trying to decide how to react. I ask her what's wrong, and she gives me a hug and a kiss on the cheek, thanking me that I wanted to get her something nice. I don't know why, but it made me feel like crap. I was expecting a much bigger reaction. I keep pushing her as to why it seems like she doesn't like her gift, and she tells me that she loves the idea, but it's obviously fake. I feel like this was an extremely ungrateful thing to say, and I called her a brat for even caring if the perfume is fake or not. I also said that she's materialistic due to the fact that she could supposedly even tell it was fake by merely looking at it and smelling it once. She says that it's dumb that I made a big show about getting it for her if I was just going to do this, and that what I got her is nothing like the original perfume, that it couldn't even be considered an imitation. I think it shouldn't matter, because I practically still got her the perfume she wanted, I just didn't drop $300 for it. This is making me see her in a different light. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. If Reddit boy got me a fake perfume, he'd need a new head. I expect my rules to be followed. Wait, not like that. I worked in the clothes section of our store, and it was not uncommon for staff and customers to ask fitting room staff to put clothes on hold for them by putting them in the back of the fitting room cupboard. All holds had to be picked up within 2 days or they'd be put back on the shelf, but everyone felt this was quite reasonable. A couple of months before Christmas, the department manager, for some reason, suddenly decided that staff were not allowed to put clothes on hold at all, even if it was just for a few hours until you finished your shift and could go to the registers. Nope. If manager saw clothes put aside for a staff member, she'd take it and screech, "I expect my rules to be followed," and "No clothes ought to be left in this cupboard," and go and put the clothing back on the shelf. She even printed out a note that said, "Staff are not to put items on hold. No exceptions." Yes, that was even how she spelled it. And stuck it inside the cupboard door where holds would have been kept. No justification was ever given for this rule. It wasn't like the staff holds were taking up space, as there would generally be no more than 1 to 2 items on hold for staff at any given time, if that. Also, when she pulled a staff member's hold items out of the cupboard, she would always rip it out as if she was trying to start a lawnmower, knocking several other items of clothing onto the floor, and she'd always just flounce out without tidying up any of the mess she had caused. Fast forward to maybe 2 weeks before Christmas. I was working in the fitting rooms on the evening shift, and manager walked in while I was on the phone with a customer, maybe 10 minutes before closing time. As I watched, manager put 2 pairs of women's pajamas into the cupboard. However, instead of just putting them into the cupboard where there was a gap, she pulled the few remaining returns forward and pushed these pajamas right to the back of the cupboard. I watched her do it. She saw me watching, but neither of us said anything. As a hardworking employee, I knew that I had to make sure the cupboard was empty of returns before I left for the night, so that whoever was working in the morning would have a clean start. So as soon as I got off the phone, I took all the clothes out of the cupboard, put them all back out on the shelf, and went and clocked out to go home. My following shift, I got screamed at for putting the pajamas back out on the shelf because they were for my mother's Christmas present, and saying that she was going to make me call her mother and force me to explain why she wasn't getting the pajamas she wanted. I said, fine, I'll explain that she doesn't get her pajamas because of your rules. Manager said, but I'm a manager. You saw me put them in there, so you should have just left them. Without saying a word, I swung the cupboard door open and tapped the "No exceptions" bit on her sign. She was absolutely fuming, but there were customers and other staff there, and she realized that she didn't have a leg to stand on and would only look stupid if she pushed it further. So she just stormed out. The fallout, if you could call it that, was that she sulked and basically wouldn't talk to me for about 3 weeks. But given that when she did talk to me, it was usually to micromanage me or tell me to do something I was literally already doing, example, hurry up and clean the fitting room stalls, as I was already sweeping up rubbish in there with a dustpan. I was quite happy with that. On a side note, some staff did try getting around this rule by putting stuff in the cupboard with no name on it, but that made it hard for other fitting room staff as we couldn't tell what was a staff hold and what was just returns that needed to be put away. Others tried writing fake customer names, but the manager caught someone doing this and started putting away clothes with a customer name on it because she wasn't going to let anyone get away with it. On more than one occasion, it turned out that she put away something that was actually on hold for a customer, and then us fitting room staff would get shouted at for it. A lot of us evening and night workers couldn't even go and quickly buy the clothes we wanted on our breaks because we worked short shifts and either didn't get a break or only got 15 minutes, and the registers were so busy and understaffed that there was no way you'd even get to check out in under 20 minutes. By the time our shift finished, the registers were closed. Give me my car back or I will have you arrested. Cast. We've got me, generally average, chronically depressed loser. We've got Karen, lady who is staying at our hotel. We've got general manager. We've got police officers 1 and 2. So I was working the front desk with my GM in the back, and generally things weren't irregular. People came in, got checked in, etc. Life was fine until a lady walks in and storms to the front desk, scowling at me. Oh boy, here we go. Where's my car? Your car? Yes. What happened to it? I don't know, ma'am. Is it damaged or something? It's gone. It's not there anymore? No, it's not. Where did you take it? I didn't do anything. I certainly didn't take your car. So after this loud exchange, the GM comes to the front, wondering what all the noise was. He asks what the problem is, and she yells at him as I let him handle the angry guest. He could already tell she was the unreasonable type of person who didn't care how things worked so long as it was in her favor. Seeing this, I'm glad to be out of the situation. I wasn't. As it turns out, her car was towed because she hadn't placed the parking ticket we provide our guests for free on her dashboard so that they can park at our hotel. This little rule was added because people don't care that our parking lot is not a free parking car lot where they can leave their car for an indefinite amount of time. You have to be a guest or do a park and fly with us for us to issue a parking permit for use. We hand them out to every guest and inform them every time that they need to place them on their car dashboards immediately, or our security will call the towing company we contract to tow their vehicle away. No, leaving it in your pant pocket doesn't count, sir. They tow all week, but their customer center is only open weekdays, and I think it was a Saturday or Sunday, so she was already in a bad way on that front. Her first version of events is we never told her that. The GM said that it's part of our standard check-in speech, and if she didn't listen, it's not on us. Then her next version is that we left her window open and somebody must have stolen her ticket, and only the ticket. We called the towing company, and one of the few attendants mentions that when that vehicle was brought in with all windows closed, they didn't see a ticket anywhere. We asked if it was possible for them to bring the vehicle back so that we could just circumvent this whole issue and get her to stop throwing a fit at the front desk. They were closed and didn't have any drivers available to do that, as it was the weekend. Then, my favorite, she turns to me and ignores the GM entirely and demands that I bring her car back or she will have me arrested for car theft. I give her the most, "What the heck? Are you serious?" look I can, and my GM scoffs before saying we can't help her as the blame is solely on her. She storms off and I shrug, and my GM goes into the back thinking that she gave up. Well, if you read the cast of characters, then you can infer that I was wrong about that assumption. She comes in a while later, flanked by 2 police officers and a smug smirk firmly on her face as she pointed at me and said, "That's him. Make him give me my car back." They walk up to me and say, "Excuse me, we're here about a report on a car being stolen." I sigh and take a moment to pinch the bridge of my nose and give the lady a very deadpan glance before turning to the officers. "I assume Karen called you?" "Yes, she did." I roll my eyes and launch into an explanation of events and why her car has been towed, not stolen. Fortunately, the officers are very calm on the matter, and when they asked for more details on the towing company we have a contract with, they nodded in understanding. They did inquire if I called the company to return the car, and after saying we did but they were closed, they walked back to her. I could even catch one of them mutter, "Why are we even here?" After they talked to her and her growing more and more outraged, she finally threw up her hands in frustration, stomped off to her room, and left the next day. She trashed the room, but we had her card on file, so we got the last laugh. Am I the jerk for refusing to go to my sister's wedding because of her wedding dress? I have had a difficult relationship with my older sister for years. She is my half-sister, and due to a strained relationship with our mom, I've struggled with our relationship for years. At times, we have come together to support each other when our mom has been unreasonable, and at times we have clashed because I have seen how she has hurt our mom. My mom has done a lot over the years to help out us both, and a number of years ago, my mom bought her a house, but they ended up arguing a lot about it, and the family had been largely no contact with her. But since lockdown, I had been talking to her more and getting closer to her, which had caused arguments with our mom. During lockdown, I lost my job, moved house, and decided to open a bridal store in our city. My sister has also become engaged to her long-term boyfriend, which we were all really excited about and happy about. Who doesn't love a wedding? We had previously discussed wedding dresses, and she had tried one on before she got engaged, and once she got engaged, I told her there was no rush as she isn't getting married until 2023, and we would wait for the new season gowns to arrive before looking. She found a dress that she loved and told me she was booking an appointment to try it on. This was a gown that I could order for her from one of my designers. I didn't think much of it. Edit. I had offered her any dress at cost price, and she had not tried any gowns on with me since she got engaged. A few weeks ago, I got a phone call from her where she told me she really didn't like the dress she went to try, but she tried on other gowns and eventually spent over £2,000 on a wedding dress. I told her on the phone I couldn't talk as I was busy. The store she bought from is one of my biggest competitors. I was really upset and felt disappointed. This is a brand new business, and my own sister doesn't want to buy from me. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I was disappointed that she hadn't even given me the respect to come to me, and she went to the other store and bought her dress on a whim. There is no time pressure or any particular reason. I was, and well over a month later, I get really upset when I think about it. I don't want to go to her wedding or have any involvement in her wedding now. As time has gone on, I have thought that it could be because she wouldn't want my mom to be involved, as she still is no contact, and I don't really see that changing. I respect and understand her decision, but I have personally decided life is better with mom and dealing with her sometimes challenging behavior. Our family has varied opinions as to whether I am right to want nothing to do with the wedding and whether I am overreacting. I honestly don't think I am, but maybe I am the jerk for getting so upset over a wedding dress. I can only book travel in coach class? Okay. Shortly before lockdown brought all manner of traveling work to a screeching halt, I was finishing up and getting ready to book my travel home. Normally, everyone would just fly, and in my case, that meant a nice short trip of about 2 hours in the air. However, this particular location and the route back home for me had an extremely scenic train route that took about 12 hours. And as a bonus, I could get a sleeper car for a pretty cheap price, less even than the flight. I asked my boss if there was any reason I had to fly instead of taking the train, as the latter would save them some money. and he said it would be fine. I didn't waste his time or mine by mentioning any of the above details. I simply booked my ticket and immediately sent in the receipt for reimbursement. Not 20 minutes later, I get an email paraphrasing, "What the heck is this? I thought you said you were going to book travel that would save us money. What do you think you're doing booking a sleeper car? You're not one of the big shots out here. Send me a new receipt for your coach class accommodations." Okay, as you wish. Cue malicious compliance. Since this happened so quickly, I was able to cancel my $150 train ticket without issue. And since there was no way I was taking a 12-hour train ride in coach instead of a 2-hour flight, I booked my air travel like I normally would and immediately sent in the $450 receipt for my coach class flight. I got yet another email asking me what the heck I was doing. Now, I'm good at booking travel and I know how to find good prices. I knew that there wasn't a cheaper flight to be had, so I wrote back, "Sorry, this is the cheapest coach class flight I could find. If you can find a better one, please let me know before the 24-hour cancellation window closes and I'll be happy to book that instead." Clearly frustrated, they told me to stop playing games, cancel the flight, and just buy the darn train ticket. I didn't. I took the flight home and got reimbursed per company policy for my coach class flight. Difficult customer wants his steaks. So this is not really my story. Our evening manager told me about this one, and I felt the need to share. At 9:15 p.m., a customer calls wishing to speak with the meat department. The department closes at 9, so the evening manager, Steve, takes the call. A man wants to know how many of the strip steaks we have on sale are left. Steve checks and tells him there are 7 left. Man thanks him and hangs up. 15 minutes later, the man calls back. He doesn't believe Steve and wants him to check again. Although annoyed, Steve agrees to check and tells the man there are now 6 strip steaks. The man shouts angrily, "I knew it! You lied to me!" To which Steve calmly responds, "No, sir. Another customer bought one since your last call." The man retorts, "We'll see about that. Well, I'm coming down there right now, and you'd better have those steaks." So a little before 10 p.m., this middle-aged man comes to the registers with a few strip steaks asking for the manager. Steve comes down and the customer rips into him. "You lied to me," the man accused. "You said there were 6 steaks left, and there are only 4. Just barely keeping his cool, Steve replies, "There were when you called, but like last time, another customer bought some." Now fuming, the man demands that Steve go back and cut him some more strip steaks. Steve refuses since he's not a trained cutter, and even if he was, the department has been cleaned for the night. The man then demands a rain check for 30 strip steaks, since this is the last day of the sale. Steve says no. He can give him a rain check for up to 4 steaks, and to make up for his troubles, he'll let him have one of the 4 steaks he's buying now for free. Not good enough for this customer. He leaves without any steaks or a rain check and promises he'll be calling the store director in the morning for such terrible customer service. As far as we know, the complaint has not yet been made. Employer doesn't want me to waste 2 hours? They waste 40 instead. A number of years ago, I worked for a small, fairly local outsourcing company. I was assigned to work with a particularly high-profile client of theirs. The client's office was just around the corner from my employer, but my employer insisted that I remain within their own offices to work, so the client provided me with a laptop to use that connected to their network remotely. It's important to note that whilst the clients were decent, my employer had a totally fear-based management culture. The managers wanted eyes on the employees at all times because they assumed people could slack off given half the chance. After almost a year of working there, I got a call from the client notifying me that my client-given laptop needed some critical updates and I would have to bring it in so IT could apply the updates locally. All sounded very reasonable to me. I brought this to the attention of my manager and advised I would be out of the office for a while so I could take my laptop to the client site around the corner for critical updates. No bueno. My manager ignored everything about the critical updates part and focused instead on the out of our office for 2 hours part. They insisted that they knew I had a remote connection to the client's office, so any updates could be applied without me needing to leave and take my laptop anywhere. I got the impression they thought I was lying to get some free time off. I decided this had the potential to teach my employer/the managers a great lesson about not trusting their own employees. So, like the model employee I was, I shrugged, "You know best, boss," and complied with their request, continuing working as usual. Until the following morning, when I switched on my laptop and nothing would work. The machine refused to connect to the client's remote network. The various software applications I used for my job also wouldn't run due to the lack of connection. Error messages flashed up on every file I tried to access, warning that my credentials had been blocked. I was left holding a very expensive brick. My manager was livid when I explained I couldn't do any work. They clicked around on my laptop trying to fix it themselves, but there was no other solution to be had. They sent me around the corner to the client's office so I could hand in my laptop to IT. I took my time enjoying a coffee and breakfast in the client's on-site cafe while IT worked on my laptop. But when I went to check on it after an hour, I believe the client IT's manager's words were, "It's done for." The critical update mentioned before was intended to repair something wrong with the way the remote connections worked. When my machine didn't get the update, it lost connection with the client's network and immediately locked me out of everything, effectively blacklisting my credentials. IT manager explained that they would have to build me an entirely new machine and set up new accounts, a process that would take about a week to ensure everything filtered through correctly and could be tested. The client was fine and understanding about it, but when I returned empty-handed to my employer's office, my manager got extremely snotty with me and insisted I still had to work somehow. I pointed out that I had no client laptop to work on, so instead of sending me home, they forced another employee to share her computer with me. For the next week, me and my colleague shared her computer, 1 hour each at a time. As I had no access to any of my files, client data, etc., all I could do was the barest minimum of work, sending a few emails from my colleague's account. After a week, I got my new client laptop, and things went back to normal. But the week of sharing meant my employer had lost around 40 hours of productivity from 2 employees. The shared pain of the experience with my colleague brought us closer together, and when my employee lost their contract with my client a few years later, she helped me get a new job with my employer's competitor. Karen trespasses in our animal sanctuary because her husband donates to us. Me. What's going on here? Employee. That woman keeps trying to enter the Outback. She says her father said she could. The nickname for the part of the sanctuary with the more aggressive animals. Me. What? I walk over to the girl. Me. Miss, can I ask what you're doing here? Stacy. I came to see the wolf dogs. I saw them on your site. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am, but we do not allow people in there. Stacy. Oh, my dad said I could. Me. Who's your dad? Paul Ryan. Fake name for privacy. This guy is one of our benefactors. He donates a good amount of money to us. Me. Your father has no authority to give you permission to enter. Stacy. Yes, he does. He donates a lot of money. He pretty much owns this place. Me. No, he doesn't. That's not how donations work. Stacy. My father told me I could see them. To be clear, her father is an extremely nice guy, and I didn't believe for a second he told her this. He is not the entitled parent here. Me. Miss, with all due respect, even if I believe you, I wouldn't let you in. The wolf dogs are aggressive animals and do not react well to strangers. BS. You posted a video the other day of a guy playing with them. Me. Miss, that was the owner. He wasn't playing with them, he was trying to examine them. One of the wolf dogs was limping, and Jax was checking to see the issue. Poor thing had a sharp rock in its foot. He's all better now. Stacy. I came all this way to see the wolf dogs. Me. I'm sorry, but that is not going to happen. Fine. We'll just see what my dad says about this. Stacy leaves, and I figure it's all over. But no, she comes back with her mother. Karen. My daughter says you wouldn't allow her to see the dogs. Me. Ma'am, these are wolf dogs, and we do not allow people in there. Karen. My husband donates a lot of money here. You should treat my daughter with more respect. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but your daughter is not allowed in. Either you let my daughter in, or my husband will no longer donate to your sanctuary. Me. I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am. We will be sad to see your husband leave us. Again, didn't believe this one bit. So, you're just going to give up donations over something like this? All you need to do is let her in. Me. We do not give in to threats, ma'am. And while we are sad to see your husband go, our animals are the most important thing. Karen huffs and walks out, dragging her daughter, who is still screaming about seeing the wolf dog. The daughter was not a kid. She was at least in her early 20s. We get a call the next day from the father. He apologized for his ex-wife's behavior. Yeah, she's not even married to him anymore. They've been divorced for over a year. He also made it clear he has no intention to stop donating. As I said, he's a good guy, and I never doubted that. Am I the jerk for my petty response to my boyfriend's purposeful incompetence about chores? My boyfriend has started pretending to be bad at basic life crap, like dishes and laundry, like he can't do it, so I do it. I felt pretty frustrated with that and told him straight up that I knew he didn't forget how to clean since he moved in with me. He was always very competent living alone, and I didn't appreciate him forgetting how to do chores. I said that when I asked him to do the dishes, and he refused and refused until he finally did them wrong, that I was not that stupid. He said that he was trying his best, and I was wrong for saying he was trying to manipulate me. And that from his perspective, I asked him to do something, and he did it the best he could. And I kept at him because it wasn't up to my impossibly high standards, and he couldn't win. And he wanted me to believe him when he says he's trying. Anyway, this might be petty, but I decided to give believing him a try. So, he had bleach stained my favorite little black dress. Instead of getting mad, next time he had a family event, I put it on. He asked me if I was really going to wear that. It looked messy. I said that I loved that dress and understand accidents happen, so I wasn't mad or upset it had bleach spots. Actually, I thought it looked kinda cool. He said he really thought it looked bad, and I said if he wants, he could Sharpie on the white spots real quick in the Uber. It ended up looking even worse. Another time we were having dinner and he had done the dishes, but put some of the cups and bowls in the dishwasher upside down so they filled with dirty dishwater. I took those cups and bowls, dumped them out in the sink, but didn't wash them further and served his food in them. He said that it was dirty, and it was like, they just came out of the dishwasher. It's just water, it's fine. And I was like, they just came out of the dishwasher. It's just water, it's fine. He said that no, it was disgusting, and I said it was really no biggie. I was getting over my impossibly high cleanliness standards, and I really didn't think it was that gross. The last time I had cooked for a work party of his. After cooking, the dish needed to cool for about 30 minutes, then be refrigerated. I had plans with my friends that night, and I asked him to put the dish away after it cooled. He forgot. The next morning, he noticed the dish was never refrigerated. I said it was fine, it was just a mistake, and it would probably be fine to eat. There wasn't a lot of meat in it. He got frustrated and said that you can't serve meat left out overnight, even if it is only a little. And I said, oh, I think it should be okay. Stuff happens. He stopped being so lazy about chores after he realized I seemed totally okay with leaving stuff badly done and that he'll be living with it. But I feel a little petty for having been dishonest about it. I actually hate how my bleached dress looks, and my stomach turned at dirty dish soup and unrefrigerated meat. Am I the jerk for being petty? Help the boss hide the evidence of his affair? Sure. Years ago, I lived in a small town with less than 10,000 people. Everyone knew everyone, and since they all went to the same kindergarten, elementary school, and high school, most of them ended up marrying each other too. Yep, it's that small. I moved there for the adventure, something about the wilderness, I suppose. I was a single guy, and I also didn't know any better. It would be fun, right? Little does one know, a small town with only one industry that attracts mostly transient population of working men, 10 on, 4 off, and living in camp must be the definition of fun. I still don't know why I did it, or why I stayed for so long. Small towns are like black holes. Once you are sucked in, it's hard to leave. There's a story I heard about this town. There are 3 women to every 1 guy in this town, so you're a lucky guy. If you spent every Friday night at the only pub, you will eventually realize it's the same 3 for every man. Like I said, because everyone knows everyone, it's inevitable some of them are hooking up, regardless of their marital statuses. My boss owns a business, and he flies out of the town often to the next biggest city because that's where his family lives and where the kids go to school. There's no way in heck his kids would grow up out here, he says. The wife can't stand the town, but would come and stay the week or even weekends every now and then. On some weekends, though, she would be in town, but he would have to go away on business. One weekend, on my days off, I get an urgent call from my boss who says he was out of town, but he needed me to quickly go into his home to help him retrieve something. He says, "Go through the basement door. It should be unlocked. Grab my laptop and all the receipts on the desk. If anyone approaches you, just be cool and pretend you belong there. Be quick and quiet." Want me to break into your house and grab property that doesn't belong to me? Anything for you, boss. As you can see, I really needed the job. I pulled up near the house, but parked further away. I surveyed the surroundings, took a deep breath, and walked quickly to the side of the house where the basement door was. Lo and behold, the basement door is unlocked. The muscle dog is in the backyard and could see me, but didn't bark. How useful to have a guard dog that doesn't bark. I entered the basement, and sure enough, there was a laptop that was plugged in and unlocked, and a Ziploc bag with receipts. At this point, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but they are fancy restaurant receipts, concert receipts, and receipts for hotel stays. Before I closed the laptop lid, I saw the thumbnails of the picture folder. Everything now makes sense. Then I heard a lady's voice from upstairs, so I shoved everything on the desk into a bag and booked it. Now I was trying to be ninja sneaky on my exit, but the darn dog barked. I must have looked extra flustered when I looked back at the house and saw my boss's wife staring at me from behind the window. Oh no. I drove straight home and took a long shower. My heart was pounding so fast, I probably forgot I couldn't remove fingerprints from my boss's home this way. Hopefully, she didn't recognize me. My phone must have been going off the whole time because it was ringing when I got out of the shower. My boss asked, "Did you get it?" I did, but your wife saw me. Did she say anything? She only saw me as I was leaving, from a distance. Okay, this is what I want you to do. Drop this off at my office, put it into the drawer. I will deal with this next Monday. Sir, I think I know what this is about, and I won't say anything. But are you sure this is a good idea? Just do as I say. Okay. At this point, I think it's been at least half an hour since I was at the basement. I drove to the office, and there were cars parked outside. It's a 24/7 operation after all. As I entered the office, I saw one of the operations supervisors, who asked if I was working weekends again, and I said yes. I moved quickly down the hallway and made a turn into my boss's office. The boss's wife was there in his office, in his chair, arms crossed, and looked upset. She said that she could call the police, or I could tell her what I was doing at her house. In the end, she will get the answer. She saw the grocery store bag I was holding onto and asked me what it was. At this point, I told her that I was told to bring this here, and I need to put this into the drawer next to where she's sitting. I placed the package and left, then texted my boss that the deed is done. Great job. Next Monday, crap hit the fan. I guess the boss's wife must have guessed the password to the laptop. I never got fired for what I did. After all, I did everything to a T. It was a tough next few months, though, as the boss and his wife worked through their divorce. The company ended up going into receivership, and everyone got laid off, including me. After years at this small town, I finally found a way and motivation to finally leave. Karen landed me a potential future job. When I was younger, around 14, I always wore collared t-shirts, often used as uniforms at most electronics stores. I had just started a simple job elsewhere and was going to use my savings and first payment to buy my first self-built gaming computer. So I was in a computer electronics store, trying to learn and make a few plans. Doing this as efficiently as possible, I like to get hands-on, and it helps me think and plan better. As I was crouching over components, like Gollum, trying to select my own components for the very first time, this lady came up to me and tried to get my attention. Me hunching over, knee-deep in my own thoughts, she asked me if I work here. As I was as focused as I was, it slightly startled me, and I jumped up and only managed to come up with a short, "Uh-huh," as I was going to ask her what she wanted, not being able to actually make out the question she just asked. She continued to ask me if I could help her, and I don't blame her considering my appearance. Me just having entered the job market, I had received some service experience and figured I might as well. The question probably couldn't be that hard, right? The following interaction ensued. We've got me, we've got the lady, and we've got the worker. Me. Yeah, sure. What do you need? Lady. I'm trying to find a laptop for my son, but I am completely lost. Seems fair enough, and a reasonable question to ask anyone with my appearance, regardless of me working there or not. Me. Oh, okay. Were you thinking school laptop or general use? Well, it's more of a gaming laptop, really. Me. Oh, okay. Do you have a budget or any other information that might be useful making a decision? Yeah, I have a budget of… Insert mid-tier budget here. And I know he plays Team Fortress 2 and Roblox. Having just spent a few weeks learning and recently acquiring the knowledge of what parts are important for what, I could confidently answer. Me. Oh, great. That doesn't necessarily require the most expensive computer on the market. Have you looked at any options? Karen, getting a slightly frustrated tone. No, that's what I came here to ask about. Me. Well, have you looked at any of the laptops displayed at the section over there? Pointing to the 2 rows of demo laptops closer to the registers. Karen, getting even more frustrated. No, I have no idea what I would be looking for. That's why I came to ask. Me. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, anything between a lower amount than budget and your budget would probably be what you need. Just look for relevant specs at the time, and it would be more than enough for him. Can you join me so I'm sure? Me. Figuring at this point it shouldn't be a considerably longer interaction and I could get back to my thing. Just point out 3 options at 3 different prices and I could leave, so I accompany her over to the laptop section. Okay, so which ones would be an option? I point to 3 different laptops, make an effort to explain the differences in a short but precise manner. After concluding, I consider myself done. Beyond that, you could really just pick based on your budget. As I'm about to leave, she says, so what can you do on pricing here? Me, a little confused, quickly realizing the mistake that has just happened. Oh, I'm sorry. I think there's a misunderstanding. Oh, come on. I know you guys have some leeway on the prices. What's the best you can do? Me. No. You see… Oh, don't you dare be more condescending than you were earlier. That should account in the price too. Probably referring back to when she was getting flustered in the first place. Me, a bit taken aback about what just happened. I don't… Oh, but I know you do. I know I can get a better one if you just work out whatever you have to. What about that one? Could we do 20% here? That seems reasonable. Me, you have to talk to… Fine, direct me to your supervisor, but you're coming with me. I don't work here. What do you mean? Why else would you be helping me? Now come on, let's bring this to the register and get something done. As we proceed to the checkout, which is rather close, she's literally dragging my tiny little self along as I make an effort to explain the mishap. When we get there to the register and a worker sees this lady literally trying to push me behind the counter, they ask what's going on. Karen, well, this young man is going to honor his word and sell me this laptop at a 20% discount. Worker, oh, he doesn't work here. Well, why has he been helping me and promised me a 20% discount then? Your company is now responsible to keep that. Me, I tried to tell you, I don't work here. And whatever the case is, I will have this laptop for this price. Worker, I don't know what happened over there, but worker continued to explain what is about to happen next. I managed to slide away as I see a manager approach. From what I could make out as I'm lingering in the area, trying to get back to my things, the lady got upset and left in a bit of a hurry. As I was getting back to my things, the manager approached me, and me, thinking I was in trouble, I was about to apologize for making the lady think I worked there. He assured me I had nothing to worry about, and he had in fact watched me deal with the situation and told me some customers are like that with the real employees too. He apparently admired the way I explained things to her and asked if I ever needed a place to work, I would be welcome back. I appreciated it, finished my planning, and left. She wants an employee discount because she is a customer ordering food. So I work at a Wendy's. I'm assuming you guys are seeing where I'm headed. The position that I got is the more laid-back position, which is the back cashier. What I do is basically do the drive-through orders, so order their food at the machine and make them pay in the first window, while they go to the second window to get food and the receipt. When I got time, I'm supposed to wash the dishes and equipment. Also, at the time of writing this, I'm officially been working here for 3 weeks. Still pretty new, but I know the major parts, such as where the orders are. Also, training is the first 2 weeks, so I was still a trainee. So a woman pulls up from the window and greets me, and I greet her back. Karen, hello. Me, Hello there. Welcome to Wendy's. How may I help you?
Yes, I would like to order a Southwest avocado salad full size.
Me. Sure thing.
I would like to do the pairing.
For those who don't know, pairing in Wendy's is usually when you get something like a half salad with fries or potatoes or a drink. Now, since I was pretty new, I didn't know how to pair, so I asked fellow employee to help me out. He's such a great guy, and he took over for me. Now, I didn't mean to be rude one bit. It's just that they were still teaching me. Fellow employee. Yes, hi. I'm sorry, this is a new person speaking. The other person is doing something else. How may I take your order? Entitled mom and fellow employee keep talking until she's done and is now headed to the second window. Now, fellow employee says, okay, she's all good. Just take the payment from her. Me. Hello there. Repeat the order.
Yup, correct.
Me. How would you like to pay today?
Before I pay, I want to know who was the first person speaking.
Me. Oh, yes, that was me. Sorry. I'm still a trainee and I didn't know how to do your order. So I asked my fellow employee to help me out. I'm super sorry about that.
That was very rude of you. A customer shouldn't repeat their orders.
By the way, she ordered a half salad with a Diet Coke. 2 things, so it wasn't very long. Me. I'm super sorry. Like I said, I just started working here and I don't know how to do many things.
I think that you should give me a discount.
Me. Ma'am, I haven't even received my uniform. Therefore, I don't have an employee discount. Until you finish training, you can't use all your perks like discounts and stuff. Entitled mom.
Well, you're going to have to give me some sort of discount.
Me. Let me bring my manager to help, okay?
I better get my discount.
Hey, I know it's a jerk thing I did to bring others to help me, but hey, the tutorials they had online didn't teach me how to do discounts and stuff. That's like going to school and then going to the real world trying to do taxes. Not sure what happened after, because she told me to do the fry station so that she can deal with the entitled mom. Apparently, my manager said we couldn't do that, and we gave her better service by giving entitled mom the more experienced employee, and entitled mom freaked out and tried to jump through the window. My manager thanked me for telling her anything before I did anything. She said I was in the right and that I didn't do anything bad. She told me the best thing to do when a customer is rude or angry is just to ask for a manager. That is my story for today. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law the truth about my brother? My brother, Joe, and sister-in-law, Jill, have been together for 10 years and they have 4 kids together. Joe works full-time at a factory and Jill has a very inconsistent work history due to her attitude. To be frank, Jill has a nasty, entitled attitude because she believes that Joe makes a lot of money and she doesn't really have to work. The reality, Joe constantly asks our parents and his younger siblings for loans that he never pays back. He also has everyone pitch in to buy their kids school clothes and shoes each year. Oh, and not to mention, he's always asking to use our cars instead of using his non-working wife's car. Our family has always fallen for Joe's sob stories because 1, we love the kids, and 2, his wife will not work to help support their family. Well, recently, my siblings and I found out that Joe is a huge liar. He's severely in loan and credit card debt, and he's a gambling addict. Turns out, he actually does make enough to take care of his family, but is so far in debt that he can't. We also found out from her family that he told Jill that she doesn't have to work. At a family holiday gathering, Jill approached my sisters and I, stating that their oldest daughter, Jill's 15-year-old daughter before marriage, needs to get a job. Jill then went on to say that she and Joe had jobs at 15 and they purchased their own first vehicles. My parents are wealthy, so Joe didn't get his summer job until he was 19, and my parents bought him not 1, but 2 cars by the age of 20. I was so taken back by the revelation that Joe has been lying to Jill about being able to afford their lifestyle. Without thinking, I told Jill that what Joe said was untrue and that our parents, and in the last 5 years his siblings, have always taken care of him, even now at the tender age of 40. Jill called us liars like we didn't know our brother, so I showed proof of how he's borrowed thousands of dollars from just me, not including our parents and other siblings over the years. Soon, other siblings joined in telling Jill the truth about Joe. Jill was furious when she finally realized that Joe was not as financially stable as he claimed. Am I the jerk for telling her the truth? Additional info. 1. Jill knew about him gambling, but not the loans and credit card debt. 2. We just found out a couple months ago about his gambling. 3. I know everyone's irritated about Jill's nasty, entitled attitude, but she likes to keep up with the Jones, but has always hated to work. She's had many paid opportunities to go to college to start a career. She was accepted into nursing and physical therapy assistant programs, but refused to enroll. 4. Joe and Jill are both toxic and dysfunctional. 5. We haven't given him an unlimited supply of money. Sometimes it's just clothes, shoes, snack money for the kids. They're both neglectful of their needs. Am I the jerk for serving a Nutella cake? I have a daughter, Emma, who's 7, and she has a best friend, Kat, who's 7. They knew each other since prep school and are inseparable since. However, they're not allowed to stay overnight at each other's places as Emma is allergic to strawberries, which Kat loves, and Kat is allergic to nuts, which Emma loves, hazelnut and Nutella specifically. 4 months ago, Emma received an invitation from Kat to her birthday party, which has been accepted. I have asked Kat's mother before if I need to bring something for Emma, but she assured me everything is fine. When we arrived, the entire party was strawberry themed, and all the food, they only served sweet stuff, had strawberries in it. Due to this, Emma gave the present she made to Kat, and we left shortly after, as I don't want to expose my child to allergies. Kat was told that Emma wasn't feeling well, and we didn't want to risk anything if she was sick. Yesterday was Emma's birthday. She wanted a Nutella cake, so one was ordered. I have warned Kat's mom that the cake will contain Nutella, but cupcakes and other desserts are nut-free. She knew about that and everything went fine until Kat had to be rushed to the hospital due to an allergic reaction. Kat's mom forgot that Nutella contains nuts and let Kat have a slice while me and my husband were not watching. She called me a jerk as she felt I was getting back at her for throwing a strawberry party and now her kid is hurt. She also said it in front of Emma, so now she's feeling guilty and she won't eat anything. Am I the jerk for ordering a Nutella cake for my daughter's birthday? Edit. I just want to add, in my country, not English speaking, Nutella is advertised as a chocolate spread, not a hazelnut one. So a lot of people don't realize it contains nuts, hence why I had to warn Kat's mom about them. Civilian wife demands salute because of her husband's military rank. There are a handful of rules to saluting in the American military. The when, why, and how is drilled into you from boot camp until the day you leave. Even the order in which the salutes are rendered have meaning. When it comes to vehicles, there are helpful insignia and stickers to indicate if it's an officer, such as a colored sticker located on the front windshield. My base was small enough where it was everyone's job at some point to do sentry salute at the front gate, which had housing for military families. Sentry duty was pretty basic. You'd stop every vehicle, check IDs, and then wave them through. If they were an officer, you'd see it coming with those colored stickers, and after verifying the identity of the officer, you'd salute and send them on their way. One day while on duty, I approached a vehicle with an officer sticker, and there was only the officer's wife driving in the vehicle. I returned her ID, wished her a nice day, and waved her through, pausing with a stern look.
Where's my salute, Petty Officer Citizen Alpha?
Now, Karen here was wife to a higher-ranking officer and has clearly fallen under the impression people are saluting her somehow along the way. Some of the junior enlisted might have even been saluting her as they're pretty easy to bully and pretty prone to mess-ups. I politely replied, "Ma'am, salutes are only rendered to commissioned officers," angrily pointing her chubby little fingers at the front of her windshield towards her husband's officer sticker.
I have a sticker, and you need to salute the sticker.
Curtly, I continued, "I'm afraid that sticker is not an officer either." Frustrated, she pulled through and left my post. My cover guy, the guy keeping me safe with a big gun, and I watched her drive down the street and pull right into the administrative building with the top brass and huffed into the building as quickly as her soft body would take her. We exchange a look between us with wry smiles, knowing exactly where this is probably going. Later that day, we get a new official base-wide mandate. From here forward, all enlisted will salute vehicle stickers of officers regardless of who's in the vehicle. Roger that. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. It's worth noting that when you salute an officer as enlisted, you do it first, and you hold the salute until you are saluted in return, and they lower theirs. Only then do you lower your salute. It signals that you're saluting them and they're replying. Additionally, when saluting a group of officers, You generally direct your salute and greeting to the highest ranking individual. Now, as far as I know, this stupid sticker salute order has no accommodation for how a 2004 Toyota Camry fits into the officer's pecking order. Additionally, if the car is unoccupied, it's not like that sticker is removed. After that order came through, we all began saluting stickers. Personally, I'd direct my salute to the sticker. I would also prioritize sticker salutes over officers. Let me tell you, walking through parking lots was a blast as I saluted empty cars on my way to wherever. More and more people saw me doing it, and more people started doing it. Not long after, the order was publicly rescinded, which hilariously had the balancing effect of never rendering a salute to anyone but a clearly known officer, cementing Karen never getting her unearned salutes. Am I the jerk for telling my coworkers that no, not everyone in the office can afford to buy a house? My coworkers are usually pretty good to work with. The average salary for them is around $100K plus. I'm their administrative assistant, and I make about $32K. Anyway, some of the things they say are kind of weird. For example, this one woman was shocked that I had never had any of my clothes tailored before. I think they're just really caught up in their own reality, you know? Like, in their world, everyone is beautiful and skinny and rich, with purebred dogs and perfect white teeth. I was helping organize, and someone announced they finally bought their first house. The conversation continued on to them kind of being rude and saying things like, "I don't get why people think no one can afford to buy a house. It's not that hard." And someone else was like, "Yeah, I can't imagine being in my 30s and still renting. I'd feel like such a failure." And they all agreed. I don't usually get upset about the things they're talking about, but I finally had it and was like, "I'm 38 and rent. I don't think I'm a failure." One of them was like,
"Oh, well, we weren't talking about you. It's just that all these people always go on and on about how it's impossible to save for a down payment."
I was just like, yeah, it is pretty hard. It was obvious the whole atmosphere in the room changed, so I was like, anyway, and got up and left to the main office to get back to work. Later on, one of the other women in the office came up and was like,
"Hey, I'm sorry about earlier. I didn't mean to offend you. It got kind of awkward in there."
I said, yeah, it was pretty awkward listening to them talk about how they'd feel like a failure if they were in my shoes. She said that's not what she meant. She actually meant that it felt like I was trying to call attention to the wage gap, like it was their fault, and that if I wanted to better myself, they could help me figure out how to apply to schools and work my way up just like they did. I said a kind of half-hearted, thanks. It's been weird in the office since then. I know money is one of those no-no topics, but it's not like it's a secret that I only make what I make. Am I the jerk? Forgot to add, we don't have HR, and this really isn't an HR thing. My girlfriend refuses to get a job and expects me to pay her bills like her parents have always done. My girlfriend, 23 female, and I, 26 female, have been dating for over 2.5 years. We met when we were both in college. I graduated soon after we met, and she dropped out after 1 year of relationship. She worked 4 months in retail and then quit. She now hasn't been doing anything for over 7 months. She looked for jobs for a week and stopped. And now she does Uber whenever she really needs money because her dad didn't send her any. I pay 75% of the rent, and we split 50-50 for the other bills. The only reason I agreed to pay more rent than she does is because she was okay with living in an unsafe part of town for low rent, while I would rather pay a little more and be safe. So I agreed to pay the difference in rent. All the bills are under my name. We agreed that she would use Cash App to send me her part of the bills every month. Her mom used to take care of all of her bills, and she told me herself she didn't trust herself to manage the bills. That's why I took responsibility of all of them. For the past 4 months, I've been asking updates about her job search and stuff, because I'm not interested in being with someone who chooses to be home watching TV all day instead of doing something with themselves. If she had a disability or something else, it would be different, but it's just her parents pay for everything. 2 weeks ago, we received our bills. I text her screenshots of all of them and send requests for each one of them on Cash App. After a few days, she hasn't sent the money yet, so I asked her if she could send it because I need to pay the bills. She apologized and asked if I could give her a week to pay me. I agreed. During the week, she told me she'll have the money Monday, today. Today she told me she was going to go paint. She doesn't get paid for it, it's just a hobby for now. I asked her if she had the bills money. She told me that Uber takes a few days to process the money and will send it to me as soon as she has it. I told her that's exactly why I had been asking her when she would start looking for a job, because I don't want to be in this situation. She then told me that she had cash she could give me for the bill. I got a little frustrated that she had cash that whole time and didn't offer it. I told her I needed the money in my account, not in cash. I asked her if she could just deposit it in our bank and send it to me. She said I could do that myself. I'm very frustrated and just asked her to send me the money online when she has it. If she had been working and lost her job for any reason and couldn't afford the bill because of it, I wouldn't mind covering the bills. But since she makes the decision of not working and not doing anything, I'm not willing to help her financially. Am I the jerk for not helping her financially? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her girlfriend? Please let us know.
You could always, break up. No way would I stay with Reddit boy over here if he was a deadbeat.
It's Redder now. Remember they made us change it.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Am I the jerk for yelling at my mom when she acted like nothing happened after my dad cheated? My parents have a great relationship. Well, that's what I thought before this happened. I'm 14, female, and my parents usually have friends over and always tell me I'm free to have friends over. So it wasn't a surprise when I unlocked the front door and could hear my dad and another woman in the kitchen. Since my dad usually calls my name when he hears me opening the door, I thought he probably didn't think I was home yet. I walked to the kitchen to greet my dad, but then I saw it. He kissed the woman on the cheek, a woman that isn't my mom. Both of them were turned, facing away from the door, so they didn't see me. My dad proceeded to flirt with the woman until I threw my bag on the ground to get their attention. They pulled apart, and Dad called out if that was me. I walked into the kitchen and greeted him and the woman, then I locked myself in my room for the rest of the afternoon. I only came out when my mom came home. I helped my mom put away her things and put her weekly flowers in a vase before turning to her and telling her what I saw. She stayed quiet for a moment, then told me that she'll take care of it and that I shouldn't worry about it anymore. A few days go by and nothing happens. There was no fight, no arguments, no sour faces at each other, no divorce. Nothing that would usually happen to cheaters in movies and stuff. It upset me how my mom would continue to joke with my dad after what he did and still cook for him. Yesterday after dinner, when my dad went to bed, I went to her demanding to know what's wrong with her and how could she go on living a life with dad who cheated. She sighed and told me to drop it, but I didn't. I asked her why she wasn't getting a divorce and why she was putting up with my jerk dad. She glared at me and told me to watch my tone and to not disrespect my dad. Finally, I yelled at her, asking why she was defending him, and she told me that she'd explain everything once I cooled down. I told my brother, who's 17, the whole story so he could know the truth about my dad, but he seemed really irritated. He told me to shut up and not tell anyone else in the family about my dad. He said that if mom said she'd handle it, she would. I told him she didn't and that they were still acting as if nothing had happened. He glared at me and told me to calm down and talk to mom like an adult if I wanted to act like one instead of just yelling at her. He also called me a jerk for escalating the situation and making dinner awkward. I don't think I'm the jerk, but whatever. Am I the jerk? My after-school activities got canceled that day, and I didn't let my parents know beforehand, so they didn't expect me to be home so early. Edit. I asked my dad about it, but he just avoided answering and told me that him and mom would talk to me about it when I cooled down. What do I have to cool down about? I don't know. Edit. Going against what my brother said, I talked to my cousin about it since we're pretty close. She's 16. Basically, she told me two things. 1, stop getting influenced by TikTok and Reddit. And 2, said they're in an open relationship. I asked how she knew for sure, and she told me to give my parents time to explain this and that it took her mom a month before she finally set her and my brother down after they caught her with a family friend. After asking, she told me this happened about 5 years ago. Never thought my aunt was like that. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for yelling at her mom about this or not? Please let us know.
I don't think she's a jerk. She's an upset and confused kid. I hope those parents just come clean and tell her the truth about what's going on.
You don't want me to interrupt you for any reason? Okay then, if you say so. I worked as a PBX operator. If you're unfamiliar, a PBX operator is responsible for switching calls on local lines within the internal telephone system of a large company or corporation. PBX stands for Private Branch Exchange, and it is a system that enables users to have external telephone lines without having to maintain a separate line for each user. The system that we used was an older one that had a switchboard where you had to pull up a line and plug it into a ringing phone line, flip a switch to answer the call, another to put them on hold, take messages, deliver messages, transferring calls, etc., while at the same time doing the exact same thing with as many as 20 to 30 other calls coming in at the same time on other switchboard lines. Our switchboards held up to around 100 phone lines. I worked side by side with Mary and Jake. We had relief operators that would take over so that we could have a break or eat lunch or dinner. During our 30-minute lunch breaks, weather permitting, we would go outside where there were picnic tables that we could sit at to eat, sleep, or just decompress. Mary liked to sit out at a picnic table alone and read a book during break and didn't want to be interrupted while she was reading for any reason and would scream, kick at, push, or curse whomever had the nerve to do it. One day, Jake and I walked outside, saw her reading, and decided to just grab another table. That's when we saw it. A snake! It was under Mary's table and slithering toward her feet. Jake knew immediately that it was a harmless black king snake. I didn't, but all snakes terrify me. So I tried to get Mary's attention. She told me to shut up. Jake told me to let her find out on her own. Cue malicious compliance in 3, 2, 1. The snake slithered over Mary's sandaled feet. At first, she just moved her foot and kept on reading, but the snake had other plans. It came back again to her feet. Again, Mary moved her feet, but the snake held on, so she looked beneath the table to see what the problem was. She screamed and kicked off the bench so fast that she scraped both of her knees on the underside of the table and the back of one ankle on the bench. When she was about 10 yards away from the picnic table, she started screaming at Jake and me. Mary:
Why didn't you tell me there was a snake under there, you morons?
Me: I tried. Jake: You made it clear that you didn't want to be interrupted. Mary:
You could have interrupted me to tell me there was a snake.
Me: I tried. You told me to shut up, remember?
Well, obviously I didn't mean it.
Jake: How exactly were we supposed to know that? Mary:
It's a snake!
Jake went to Mary's table and retrieved the 3 to 4 foot long king snake and let it wrap around his arm and hand. This caused Mary to back up even further.
Get rid of it!
Jake: Nope. I'm going to let this little guy live right here until you apologize to OP for being so rude to her. Mary doubled down and refused, saying that she had every right to protect her me time and wasn't about to apologize for it. Jake laughed and told her that in that case, he wouldn't interrupt her me time any longer and laid the snake on top of her book that was still on the table. The snake seemed to like the nice warm pages and curled up for a nap in the sun. Mary never did retrieve her book. It sat on the picnic table a little over a week before it disappeared. We figured it was maintenance that took it when they mowed the lawn. Mary also never apologized, but she never went outside for break again either, choosing instead to sit on the floor by the door to read. Am I the jerk for being too heavy a sleeper? It bothers my husband now that we're about to have a baby. So I've always slept like a rock. I'm the oldest of 9 siblings, and my family didn't have a lot of money, and we always were packed into small apartments. I can sleep through anything. Kids screaming or babies crying, fighting, car alarms, sirens, noisy neighbors, anything. Lights don't bother me either. I joined the Navy right out of high school too, and that made me even more ready to catch some solid Z's whenever possible. Made me sleep through jostling and rocking too, since I had to get used to sleeping on rough seas and in tight quarters. My husband is a very light sleeper. We are pregnant now. My husband has been getting frustrated with me for how heavily I sleep. He's worried that when we have our baby, I'll be heavily asleep and he'll have more responsibilities. A few things that worried him were, he had his brother over and they had a small fire in the kitchen when they were cooking. I was taking a nap and the smoke alarm didn't wake me up. Luckily, they put it out quickly, but he was really worried that if I was alone with our baby, I had not noticed the smoke alarm. I suggested we get a louder one or see if we can set up the sort that calls the fire department automatically. Next, I was home alone and went to bed. He lost his keys on a night out with friends and was banging on the door, ringing the bell and calling my phone, the landline phone, etc. I stayed asleep. He went to sleep at his friend's spare room instead. He said that we needed to do something before the baby comes, because if I'm asleep and there's an emergency, I'll be unreachable. I said maybe he should hide some spare keys in the yard to avoid this issue. He felt I was missing the point. Lastly, we were taking a weekend trip to visit his family. We were sleeping in the room next to his sister, who has newborn twins. Apparently, when I was asleep, the twins both started crying and it was super loud through the thin walls. I didn't stir at all, and he realized that when we have our baby, I probably won't be woken by crying in the night. I said that maybe we could get a baby monitor and crank the volume up extra high, or he could just give me a shake. He said I was missing the point again. It's a problem that for 8 or more hours a day, I'm totally dead to the world and unreachable, and that I need to fix it before I'm a parent, or else he's going to feel like he can't count on me to be there for our baby or to be responsive in emergency. I said that I was trying to find ways to work around my heavy sleeping, like getting a louder fire alarm or hooking up a baby monitor to some loud speakers to amplify it. He said he can't live in a house where every sound is turned up to 11 and I needed to do something else. I don't know what to do. I don't think I can just start sleeping less well. I've always been a sound sleeper and unbothered by noise and light because I've never had a quiet, dark place to sleep until I was like 25. Am I the jerk for being so heavy a sleeper? My MLM, multi-level marketing, experience. About 3 years ago, I was suffering with depression. At the time, I knew I was pretty low, but in hindsight, I didn't realize just how bad I felt. There were a number of factors, not least being sent to work away from my family, married for 2 months, baby on the way, for a year, and was accommodated in a shipping container. Not a joke, I was living in a shipping container. I was probably not a million miles off doing something dramatic. An MLMer very nearly tipped me over the edge. I get a message on social media, how it all started, from a guy I had worked with about 4 years prior for 2 weeks. We had got on well, and I thought he was a good bloke, but such is the nature of my industry, we both moved on to other things and didn't speak to each other again. This message came when I was at a really low ebb. So when I got the, "Hey, how are you?" I thought I had nothing to lose by answering honestly and telling him that I was pretty low. In retrospect, this MLMer smelt blood like a shark hunting a wounded porpoise. I was working about 4 hours away from where he lived. "Don't go anywhere. I'm coming to pick you up, and we're going out to play some snooker, for a pint, etc." Sure enough, he came and picked me up. We went for a pint, talked a bit, and I felt so much better. I really felt validated and worthwhile, and it made such a difference after about, at this point, 2 months of isolation. About 3 days later, he rang me again, made an arrangement to hang out with some other lads he was mates with. When I got there, I realized that it was an MLM conference, sales pitch, cult recruitment. I have never felt so let down in my life, and that endorphin high I had been riding out of my pit of despair came crushing down around my ears when I realized he didn't give a monkey about me or how I was. All he saw was a loser who was in a vulnerable place that he could exploit. I stood up and walked out within 2 minutes of it starting and realizing what it was. As I was waiting for the bus back to my shipping container, no car, I left that at home for my wife to use, I got a phone call from him telling me to come back and that I was wasting an opportunity and that connecting to millionaires would be my road out of a job and living circumstances which were making me miserable, etc. And all the time I was on the phone to him, I could hear his upline telling him, "Push the lifestyle harder. You have to get him back. You need to make the most of the situation. This guy is the perfect recruit for your downline, etc." Anyway, I have always wanted to share this with someone. Forget MLMers and their morally vacuous approach to mitigating their own losses. And for the record, I am now working near my home, go home to my family every night, and am perfectly happy. Would I be the jerk for suing my boyfriend for not paying my medical bills? I, 21, female, have been with my boyfriend, 24, male, for 4 years. We're both in college and don't have a lot of money altogether because of that. I have more money saved up, but that's only for college, so I don't really even consider that money that I have, if that makes sense. So I am deathly allergic to peanuts, and it has been this way my whole life. I was told even the smallest speck could end me. I have been very careful about this my entire life, and I've only had to use my EpiPen twice. My boyfriend knows this, yet he continues to eat peanut products, but I just make sure not to kiss him when he has had something peanut that day. He washes, etc. Personally, I never liked that he just didn't stop because I feel like he was putting me in danger, but I also couldn't force him to stop either, and it has worked for the past 4 years. what happened. So he came over into my dorm and we were just hanging out and he kissed me, and a couple of minutes later I could feel my throat swelling and my lips getting bigger. I instantly knew that I was having an allergic reaction. I grabbed my EpiPen and shoved it into my leg and told my boyfriend to take me to the ER. Even with the EpiPen, I was struggling and was nearly passing out. My boyfriend was really freaking out too. Once I got to the ER, I was taken in, and the last I remember was passing out on the wheelchair in. I woke up and my reaction was down, and I was having the side effects of the adrenaline, but overall okay. I got my phone out and my phone was blown up with apologies on how he forgot he ate a Reese's cup and he was so sorry and to please forgive him. Once I finally got home and settled down, my parent picked me up. I told my boyfriend he should be responsible for my medical bill and a new EpiPen, the other one my school has, and he was telling me he has no money and he can't, and that I have more money than him, etc. I was pretty peeved off at him because he just nearly ended me, and now he won't even take responsibility for my medical bills? Well, word got out to his family, and I received rude texts from his mom saying it's my allergy, so I should have to pay the medical bill, and I was the one irresponsible. I got mad and texted my boyfriend saying it was dumb to bring his mom into this, then proceeded to say if he doesn't, I'm going to take him to small claims court because I don't have an extra $5,000 to spare for a medical bill. He got very upset, and I'm pretty sure our relationship is over now. I've gotten a lot more texts from his mom now and from his sisters, and I'm choosing to ignore them. My parents agree with me that I should go and do that, but I'm just not sure. So, would I be the jerk? Edit. I would also like to say in the past, and I have on texts, we've agreed if he had any peanuts, he needs to tell me, which he did not this time. Am I the jerk for making my daughter eat salad while my son gets chicken nuggets? I have 2 kids, a 7-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter. Every other week, I take them to activities in a certain mall, and in between, we go to a local fast food chain. Now, I do usually have my kids have a healthy diet, but for those rather rare occasions, I let them choose whatever they want. I don't believe going to a fast food place, but then restricting their order so they won't enjoy rather unhealthy food makes sense. So the kids' menu comes with many different options, and the menu even has pictures of all the food. They go every week, so they know. My son chose chicken nuggets and fries as the main, a drink and a cookie for dessert. Just what I would have expected. My daughter picked the chicken Caesar salad. I did not expect that. Asked her if she was sure, explained it did not come with fries. She loves fries. She insisted. Last time I had the salad and she tried one of my croutons and a piece of chicken and loved them. I did not care too much, and a Caesar salad is great. It's not like just snacking a few salad leaves like a rabbit. There's sauce, cheese, chicken, fried chicken, and croutons as extras. Plus, she had the ice cream for dessert. Well, the food came, we sat down, and after taking a few bites, she started complaining about the food. She saw my son eating his chicken nuggets and dipped the fries in the sauce. She asked him for one. He let her try one of the fries and gave her a nugget, as he usually can't finish it all anyways. Then she decided that instead of the salad, she wanted fries now. I said no, she has to eat the salad. Or well, I would not make her eat it, but I won't buy her fries instead. My argument is that she chooses it. She's old enough to know that choice, and there's nothing wrong with the salad. It looks delicious. I even offered to give her some of my meal, a baguette sandwich, but she wants nuggets and fries now. She started throwing a fit. I ignored it. Told her to sit and eat, or at least stop screaming now, or there would be consequences. Some old lady heard her, and I guess she picked up the, it's not fair that he gets nuggies and fries and she has to eat that stupid salad. Well, the lady went off on me. How I'm treating my kids unfairly. I told her to get out of my business and shut up. She does not know what she's talking about. Am I the jerk for making my daughter eat the salad she chose instead of buying her nuggies and fries like her brother? You want me to ask every customer if they're a member and sign up those who aren't? No worries. I work in a relatively large bottle shop, liquor store for those in the US, and we have the worst and most pedantic middle management I've ever worked for. They sent an email to all stores in the state demanding to know why customers weren't being signed up to our loyalty program. You could tell these middle managers had never actually worked in a store, as they expected us to ask every single customer if they were a member and if they weren't a member, to sign them up to the loyalty program. Also, if a member doesn't have their card, we were expected to look them up manually. This can take a long time, as sometimes customers give you an old address and the system only allows you to look up customers with a current surname and postcode. I ignored the email and continued to serve people as normal. I would always remind our regulars to get out their card so they wouldn't miss out of getting their loyalty points, and would occasionally sign up people when the shop was quiet. Cue follow-up emails and a talking to from the store manager. You have to sign up at least 5 people a day. Fast forward to Christmas Eve. Our store is understaffed, and the area manager is coming around to each store in the area for an hour or so, just to see how the stores were doing on such a busy night. I decided now was the perfect time to ask each and every customer, "Are you a member of our loyalty program? If yes, but they don't have a card, no worries, just let me look you up. It won't take a second. If they weren't a member, would you like me to sign you up for the program?" For context, signing people up manually takes about 3 to 5 minutes. It will take them the same time to sign up themselves on the App Store at home, but I would never tell them this. So we have a queue which is snaking through the length of the store. People are getting impatient, but because they think I'm just being helpful, no one gets mad with me. The area manager, who's been doing next to nothing, just walking around checking we have the correct tickets up, suddenly comes up to me. He's super flustered and says, "Why are the transactions taking so long? This line is getting ridiculous." I tell him calmly, while slightly playing dumb, that I'm just following management's directive to make sure we're asking every customer for their loyalty card and signing up those who are not members. He tells me that, "There's no time for that, just serve them quickly." So I said, "But we've been told to sign up 5 people a day by you." At this point, he's red in the face and just blurts out, "Just serve and forget about the loyalty program." So I don't ask a single customer for their card or sign up any new members on that shift, and I haven't since. Plus, management has never mentioned it again. Am I the jerk for not locking my dogs outside? We have 2 dogs, both small and no higher than your knees. We love Christmas in my family. I prefer Halloween myself, but still love Christmas, and I got them both Christmas jumpers. We always get them a little bag of treats and toys too. I only mention this to show how loved they are. My nephew is nearly 9 and afraid of dogs. We don't know why, but he's absolutely petrified of them, despite being fine with our late dog, a Cavalier. He has even run into the middle of the road on a few occasions to get away from dogs in the street. My sister, his mother, always coddles him and expects us to lock our dogs outside whenever he visits, which is all the time, for hours at a time. It wasn't an issue until now because of the spring and summer months, and they really love being out in the sun. They like playing out there in the garden with the cats. It is, however, an issue now. Where I live, our autumn and winter months are very cold. I don't want to lock them out in that kind of weather. I've offered to pay for therapy to help him get over the fear and anxiety, but she says it's just the way he is and we should accommodate that. Then the real problem crept up. She wants to come have Christmas with us. That would mean locking our dogs outside in the freezing, potentially snowing weather all day. I refused. I told her it was never going to happen, even though I love my nephew. This is my dog's home. She said that they can go in the shed with their jumpers on, with their gifts, and that they would be fine, and that my nephew deserves to enjoy his Christmas without the dogs. I said he can, just not here. My mother isn't getting involved. My other sister agrees with me, and my brother disagrees. I do understand that my nephew is scared of dogs, and that isn't his fault, but my dogs aren't at fault either. Am I the jerk? Edit. A lot of people are suggesting I put them in a room upstairs, but they like to burrow and hide under things, so often got locked in rooms by accident. Because of that, I made it so my doors don't latch now. Edit. Loads of people are saying that I want them here for Christmas. I did not invite them. There's no party I'm hosting, nothing. My sister invited herself because I'll be alone, knowing full well I like it that way. Customer hits on me, manager called the cops and kicked him out. For a background, I, 28 female, have a customer, 50 male, that I have served a couple of times before. He asked me out sometime in early 2020 and I told him no. The day after Christmas, this man came in alone and sat in my section. I was hoping that he wouldn't recognize me this time because I was wearing a mask and I had changed my hair. Unfortunately, he did remember me, but his meal was fairly uneventful. The issue started when I dropped off his check. As I reached to pick up his payment, He grabbed my hand during lockdown and said, "I love you." I was very caught off guard, so I just gave an awkward laugh and walked away to swipe his card and get him out of there. When I walked back with his receipt and card, he asked what I was doing for New Year's Eve and if I would like to go out with him. I replied no, and that I would be home with my husband. He said, "Oh, I didn't realize you were married," while looking at my wedding ring. He then added, "Well, he's a lucky man," with a wink. Gross. I told him to have a good night and walked away, deciding I was not going to go back to my section until he got up because he was creeping me out. I figured that would be the end of it and I could go on with my night. No such luck. He sat at the table for another 15 minutes waiting for me to return. I refused to go over there, so I asked other servers to run my food, and I helped run their food to other parts of the restaurant. He finally got up, but then he went and stood by the host's stand for another 20 minutes watching me. At this point, I was feeling super uncomfortable and getting very anxious about him still being there. I finally told my boss what was going on and that I was uncomfortable, so he kept his eye on the customer for me. When he finally left the building, my boss came to tell me that he watched him get in his car and I could relax. About 30 minutes later, my boss started hovering around my section and told me I didn't do anything wrong, but he was going to be spending some time in my section. He did this twice, and over an hour after the customer had left, he pulled me to the side to talk to me. Turns out, the guy never left, and he was still sitting in his car. He had walked into the restaurant twice, looking and wandering around, and went to the bathroom. My manager was worried about me and called the cops on the guy. The cops came in to ask me what happened and asked if we, my manager and I, would like to have him trespassed. My manager told me it was my choice, and I said yes, because after this, I couldn't imagine having to see him again. The cops pulled him out of his car and told him he would be arrested if he ever came back to our restaurant. This incident gave me pretty bad anxiety for a week or two after it happened. Why was he sitting in his car for so long? By the time the cops got to him, he had been at our restaurant for over 2 hours after he finished eating and paid for his meal. What would have happened if my manager wasn't watching him? I wouldn't have known that he didn't leave. Was he waiting for me to get off so he could follow me? Several weeks later, a manager is still walking me to my car every night that I leave. I'm grateful my manager had my back and took my concern seriously, but I hate that it went so far. I wish I could be more verbal and stand up for myself sooner, instead of having a freeze and appease reaction. But I do feel like I learned from the situation, and hopefully if there is ever another time I'm in a similar situation, I will be stronger. Karen was rude to the owner, so I fired her. I'm a manager at a small business. It's just me, the owner, and another person who is my employee. The owner usually handles the checks on a certain day. We still haven't set up direct deposit yet because they have limits with their banks. The day the checks were supposed to go out, the owner's father had to be rushed to the hospital, and it was so bad that we didn't think he was going to make it. This resulted in our checks being 2 days late. I understand that it was inexcusable and unprofessional. However, it was something out of the owner's hands. The employee, however, she was up in arms, angry, and calling the owner multiple times about her check while his father is almost gone. He answered her the first time, and then he told me to handle it, and I explained everything to her. However, she still kept calling the owner. I get that we all need money, but in my opinion, it's just tasteless to demand a man leave his dying father's side just so you can get your check on time. She was our opener on Monday, and she was late and not even in uniform. I told her that being late, especially when the store opens at 7 a.m. and she's the opener, is inexcusable, and she went on a very long and drawn-out rant about her check. I informed her that I don't have her check, and she will get it once the owner comes later that day, and my job is to ensure that she's doing her job, and coming late and not in our standard uniform is not our image. And she kept deflecting and demanding to speak to the owner, whose father is in his deathbed. I fired her for a few reasons, but the last nail in the coffin was her blatant disrespect for the owner and myself. I did not come to argue with her. However, she was ready to battle. I still feel guilty about it, but I honestly don't know what else I could have done. We did get her check as soon as the owner got there, but I didn't think she was a good fit for a few reasons and let her know that we won't be needing her anymore. So Reddit, did I do something wrong? Edit, I know that we have a very wonky payroll system and we're working on getting that fixed. It wasn't our intention to withhold her pay. We don't regret firing her because even before this incident, she was already on thin ice due to her tardiness, among other things. We are a small business and we try to do the best we can for each other and our employees. However, she has made demands and taken advantage of our willingness to be adaptable. I understand that a lot of you question why I didn't just pay her from the till. We are a cashless business, so we don't have money. Second question, why didn't I just pay her myself and wait for the company to reimburse me? I admit that thought crossed my mind, but I didn't know if it was possible to do that from a legal standpoint, or if I would be overstepping. Lastly, the most asked question is, how am I still defending the owner and myself? The answer is that I'm not. I know we should have paid her on time, and she has a right to be angry, but you can be angry and polite and professional at the same time, and the way she handled the situation, I just didn't think this was someone I would want to work with. It just wouldn't fit the environment we try to bring into the team. You're the jerk. An employer has an obligation, legal and moral, to pay their employees on time. Do you think her landlord cares why her rent is late? If the car loan people care why her payment is late? No. Her saying her boss's father is ill will carry zero weight when it comes to her financial obligations. You say the final nail was her blatant disrespect? You try to say not a good fit, but we both know that's just trying to make it seem more reasonable, don't we? How about your total disrespect of the employment contract? She works, you pay her. Why should she turn up on time, etc., if you aren't even paying her? You don't know what else you could have done? You could have just paid her on time as you were obliged to do. If the owner isn't able to make the checks, then you need a backup method. Pay her in cash or the like. His failure to properly set up his accounting systems doesn't absolve him of his legal obligations. You're the jerk because you have to pay your employees on time. The owner doesn't get a pass because his dad was passing, and you don't get to fire someone who insisted you not break the law by not paying her on time. You should have found a way to pay her, even if it meant paying her in cash or taking the checks to the owner to sign in the hospital lobby. Her being late and not in uniform aren't okay, and you could have noted that and fired her for the next thing, but now she might have a case against you. It sure sounds like you fired her as retaliation for demanding she be paid at the agreed upon or legally required time. You shouldn't be a boss until you have a handle on this kind of thing, in part because it sounds like one small lawsuit or fine from the labor board would put this company out of business. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his employee? Please let us know. I'd be upset if I wasn't paid on time, but if the hospital situation was that serious, I wouldn't act like she did. Then again, I'm not dependent on my check for survival. That's what I have you for, Reddit boy. Redder. Remember they made us change it. I know, but I'm still gonna call you Reddit boy. Deal with it. Am I the jerk for making my friend's boyfriend cry after he insulted my career? First things first, I, 25 female, am a doctor, right now doing my residency in pediatrics. This is not the USA, English is not my first language, and I'm using a TA for privacy reasons. One of my best friends, almost a brother, Kevin, who's 26, started dating Olaf, who's 28, 3 years ago. In general, Olaf is a good guy, or at least that's what I have been told, because he has a peculiar character trait. He hates doctors with all of his soul. Kevin told me this hate started more or less than 9 years ago when Olaf lost his mother in a simple surgery due to a medical error. I honestly don't know more details, but since then, Olaf hates hospitals, doctors, etc. Luckily, he is healthy and hasn't needed any medical attention in recent years. The small health problems he has, he solves with homeopathic medicine and traditional cures. Because of this, Olaf is pretty cold towards me, and while I avoid talking about medical topics around him, if they come out, it always ends in him making mean comments. One of the most common being, "Western doctors are just licensed criminals." I want to believe I'm a very patient person, but yeah, imagine how fun this lockdown was with him around. And now to the event in question. On Sunday, my friend group, including Olaf, was hanging in a cafe talking about life when one of the girls, Sheila, got a text message. The next conversation ensued, more or less. Sheila: "Bad doctress, my aunt is a little confused with her formula. Here, can you tell me what these pills are?" Me: "Sure, this is for Olaf." "Puff, are you really asking her?" Sheila: Yeah, she is a doctor." Olaf: "You say that like it's something good." Me: "Sorry?" Kevin: "Babe, you should not." Olaf: "Why not? They are useless.
People will be healthier without them and their poisons. Look at me. I'm perfectly fine and haven't seen one in a decade. It's not my fault she chose to waste her life by becoming a doctor.
I blew up. I will not even try to transcript all the things I said because most were insults. But I do remember the last part, which was, word by word, "I'm sorry your mom passed, but that's not my fault, nor the fault of all the doctors in the world. And I am sure that if she had been in the care of the same type of imbecile that you are, she would not be more alive today." I was red, angry, and it was obvious most of the patrons at the place heard me. Olaf was dumbfounded, tears in his eyes. He suddenly got up and ran away, Kevin following behind. A waiter kindly asked the rest of us to pay and leave. I haven't heard from Kevin since. He's leaving all my messages on scene. My friends say they understand that I was mad, but I know his reason and that I went too far by striking that chord. Honestly, I don't feel remorseful, but there is still anger in me, so not the most impartial judge. What do you guys think? Not the jerk. Olaf has formed an opinion that all doctors are licensed criminals because of an unfortunate and fatal mistake that was made. He instigates arguments because you're a doctor, and he's extremely disrespectful. People have a limit, he keeps testing yours. You're human, and you finally snapped back. If he doesn't like it, too bad. Not the jerk. There's not liking doctors and simply stating that and letting it go. Then there's just being a flat-out jerk, which Olaf is being. There's also absolutely no excuse for being like that, for treating someone that way. People can have a difference of opinion and be respectful. He's not doing that. If Kevin in this situation is okay with how Olaf is treating you and is in the end mad at what you said to him, he isn't your true friend. Find new friends who actually respect you and your career. I'd say not the jerk. I agree that his mother's passing was unfortunate, but he can't continue insulting you on a regular basis. It might sound insensitive, but if his mother had passed in an accident, would he be blaming every person on the road every day? I understand where he's coming from, but personally attacking every doctor this way is too much. He can hate them and not visit any doctor, but not attack and insult this way. And you're not a saint. You have feelings too, and there will come a breaking point where you snap. And thank you, OP, for all the work you've been doing during lockdown. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Olaf? Please let us know. Don't dish it out if you can't take it back. And was anyone else picturing the snowman from Frozen this whole time? Sovereign citizen gets kicked out. This happened this afternoon. I was down in the basement office and the hostess comes in, tells me there's a man upstairs who won't wear a mask, mandated in our state in restaurants, and refuses to leave. He demands to speak with the manager. No problem, I've only done this 894 times at this point. Up the stairs I go. He's smugly leaning on the host stand. Me. Sir, you have to wear a mask to be in here. Him.
No, I don't.
Me. Yes, you do. Please put one on or exit the building. Him.
I know my rights.
Me. Then you should know we are currently under a mandate in this state and we're not going to serve you without one. Him.
You can't force me.
Me. I'm not trying to force you. I'm simply telling you our options. Mask or leave. Him.
I am a sovereign citizen, and I don't abide by any laws or mandates set by any government. You hold no authority over me or my person. You are required to serve me as I am.
Me in my brain. Oh, for goodness sake. Me, out loud. I am also a sovereign citizen, and you are currently in a sovereign restaurant. You are on sovereign ground and are subject to my requirements. I require that you leave immediately. He's speechless. Me. Please exit the building. You are trespassing on sovereign territory. Him.
Well, there's a lot of other restaurants in this town.
Me. Plenty of options. Him.
I guess I'll just spend my money somewhere else.
Me. Great, we agree. Him storming out.
This is discrimination. You'll hear from my lawyer.
Me calling after him. As a sovereign citizen like yourself, I neither recognize nor am under the authority of any court of law. Him.
Buzz off.
I'm surprised he didn't film the whole thing and camp out till the police came. What is wrong with people? Catch a sovereign boot in your backside. Entitled Mom calls the police on my dog. I have several rescued Dobermans, but the two needed for this story are Queen, who was severely mistreated and is now aggressive and super anxious, and Duke, my service dog for PTSD, and a variety of other mental problems. Please keep your comments on how to handle my dogs to yourself. This is not the time nor the place to tell me. So, because Queen is so aggressive, whenever she goes outside, she has to wear a muzzle and is leashed to me just to make sure she doesn't bolt, to monitor her mental state, and to give lots of love and treats when she focuses on me and not people walking past my house. Helping her has honestly helped me a lot, and Duke is also fairly protective of us both, in a service dog way. He does body blocking, where he puts himself between us and whatever is making us upset, relevant to the story. Because of this, we do get stares and whispers sometimes, but most people in my neighborhood know about Queen now. Except Entitled Mom and Nice Kid. Nice Kid is walking home from school and reaches his hand through the chain link fence holes to pet some of my other dogs. Because he is trespassing, Queen automatically gets aggressive and tries to lunge. Thankfully, she's a smaller Doberman, and I'm able to stop her and just quickly wave before bringing her inside. I come back outside and say hi, sorry about her, she was just scared. Nice Kid nods and asked about why she was scared, so I explained that her old owners were really mean and scary. I said it's like when you watch a scary movie and are scared even after the movie ends. She's just trying to calm down, but it's taking her a while. I grab one of my dogs who is good with kids and bring him out to be pet by Nice Kid, and we talk for a bit on how to properly approach dogs and to not stick our hands through other people's fences. He leaves and I think we're done. Bring my dogs inside, give Queen her anti-anxiety medication before one more potty break before bed. While I'm outside, Nice Kid is standing a bit away, while a woman, Entitled Mom, is leaning against my fence and calling out, "Hey, hey, you!" Because Queen was doing pretty good and seemed fairly unbothered. I walked closer, but left several feet between the fence before giving a treat to Queen and asking what she needed. Conversation is paraphrased since it happened a while ago. Entitled Mom, "My son says you're mistreating this dog." She points to Queen. Nice Kid, "I said someone else mistreated her and she's still scared." Entitled Mom just waved her hand at him and continued, "You need to give it to me and the rest of your dogs before I call the police on you for animal mistreatment." Me, "I'm sorry, but I'm not giving you my dogs. You can call the police, but these are my dogs. I honestly had thought she was bluffing." Entitled Mom started screaming, which is a big trigger for both me and Queen. "Hand them over." Queen doesn't lunge, since nobody had come onto her territory yet, but she did start to press against my leg and was shaking so hard I could see it. This is what she does before a breakdown, as I call them, where she basically goes blind and will attack anyone, including me and my other dogs. She hadn't had one in over a year though, so I didn't take much notice. Thankfully, Duke did. Entitled Mom kept screaming while Duke body blocked us both and was trying to lean against Queen for some pressure therapy and keeping his eyes on Entitled Mom. He was trained to do this so I could feel safe enough to take my eyes off of other people, but it can be unnerving. I understand that. Entitled Mom apparently thought this was an attack stance. Duke is my biggest boy, and if you don't know what an attack stance truly is, it can sometimes look like a dog is just standing tall and is ready to attack. And whipped out her phone and called 911, saying something along the lines of an aggressive dog was attacking her and her son. I sent my dogs, who actually listen, inside while I stayed put, too afraid that Entitled Mom would climb my fence, but put some distance between me and the fence and brought Queen with me. She was still heavily shaking, and when I crouched down and tried to pet her to calm her down, she snapped at me. I stumbled back, landed on my butt, and Queen had her hackles raised, looking blankly ahead. I tried to talk to her calmly and softly, but Entitled Mom is still screaming, now about how I am being attacked and to hurry. The rest was a mess. The police arrived, and I basically had to cover Queen while she struggled and smashed her muzzle into me, trying to bite me to make sure they wouldn't do anything, while I also cried, which freaked Duke out as he ran around us in circles, trying to figure out what to do. Eventually, the police told me to bring my dogs inside and to come out and talk. Duke refused to leave my side, so I put his harness on and brought his papers for proof just in case. I bring them everywhere, to be honest, and we both went outside. I was able to produce Queen's papers and even called my vet for proof that she is a scared dog, not an aggressive dog, and my vet even explained some of her treatment plan to them all. By the end of it, myself, Queen, and I'm pretty sure Duke as well, not to mention my other dogs, we're all so emotionally drained, we just went to bed, and I called in late to work for the next day. Several of my neighbors have told me they gave their own statements to the police about my dogs and Queen, and thankfully we have a few security cameras that can sort of view my yard, and the police have since dropped the case. I saw a nice kid today, which is why I thought of this story. He slid a note under my fence that said sorry with a few drawings of my dogs and me. It was very cute and sweet. I hope he is okay though. He looked really scared when I more or less flung myself over Queen while she had a breakdown. Just open up another register. So I work in a smallish sized store. On a typical day, we only have 2 employees, usually management and a cashier, working at any given time. This means one employee is on the register while the other walks the sales floor and stocks. On a normal day, this is more than enough, but occasionally we get a rush of people in the store and we open a second register. If the second employee isn't in the middle of helping a customer on the floor, but they always jump onto a register as soon as they are available. Now, our customers are usually understanding and patient when these rushes happen. However, in the last week, I had 2 separate occasions where full-grown adults threw the biggest fits because there wasn't a second register currently available. The first one happened during our shift change. These are the worst since things are chaotic already. To make things worse, it was the end of a new employee's first shift. I had just clocked out and was gathering my things, double-checking the schedule for my next shift and who I would be working with. The manager that just came in 20 minutes prior switched the other 2 employees out. During this time, there was only 1 person in line and maybe 5 groups of people in the store total, so it was the ideal time to switch them. She took the new person to the office to count their till and help them with clocking out. While I was heading out, the phone went off. The on-duty manager was still busy, so I went ahead and answered it. It happened to have been another store asking questions, so I decided to sit down and answer a few of them before I left. During this time, about 2 minutes, out on the floor, everyone in the store decided they were going to leave. I finished talking to the other store and walked out. Instantly, I was approached by a man asking about what sounded like, "I looking for a job." This isn't uncommon, and so I pointed to the poster next to the register that gives the website to apply and explained we were looking for new employees. And then the conversation went like this. Man,
Yo, I only got a couple things. You mind opening up another line?
me. Sorry, but I actually am off the clock and leaving. However, they are almost done in the office and will be able to open up in a minute. Man,
Why can't you just open up the second line?
me. I don't have a draw. I'm off the clock. Man,
Why isn't there another dang checker?
me. Sorry, they're in the middle of a shift change and having some technical issues. New person was indeed having a hard time figuring things out. They're almost done and will be out in a minute. Man,
If you weren't in that darn office yapping your mouths off, y'all would be done. This is horrible customer service.
this really ticked me off because the yapping he was hearing was me talking to another store about work-related questions and the manager guiding the new girl through the end of the shift process. By no means were we yapping. And then, as to make me even more irritated, some middle-aged teen, really hard to tell, girl jumped in. Why do you have a shift change in the middle of the day anyways? It would be smart if you don't change shifts. I was done. Me. I don't make the schedule, I just follow it. Someone will be out in a minute. You can either wait here at this closed register or you can wait in line. Sorry, but I'm off the clock. I walked into the office to let them know the tension on the floor and walked back out. The man must have also walked out because he left his small handful of stuff on the counter. Funny thing is, the woman that was originally behind him in line was up at the open register checking out. If he would have waited 3 minutes, he could have left with what he wanted. I'll share the second one on another post someday during the week, since this one got to be too long. For all of you working retail this holiday season, hang in there. ID everyone at the door and every bag? You got it. Working in security at a casino is probably one of the best places to work at. There's not only free drinks, but there's cheap food, music, and girls that are down to hang out, free or not. However, it does come with its quirks that are unique to a casino/hotel combo. Back in 2020, we had to conduct temperature checks and hand out free masks, as well as maintain social distancing and keep a limit of guests in the venue. 2,000 guests Monday through Thursday and 3,500 guests Friday through Sunday. This also allowed for us to stop the line if things go wrong. During briefing, pre-shift on a Friday, I worked swing shift at the time. A joke was thrown my way from the director on IDing guests as they came through. If you can solo the garage side entrance for 4 hours starting at 7 p.m. all the way to the end of shift and ID everyone that needs to be checked, you'll see where this goes in a minute. And check bags that come through, I will add a bonus to your check. I said, deal. So 7 p.m. comes by. I show up to a count of 1,500 people in the venue and 4 temperature lines, with guests starting to come in masse. This thread is about malicious compliance. I stopped every single guest for their ID, checked every single bag, and slowed the door down. I was just starting work again after getting out of the Marines 2 months prior. I used a pronounced voice in a firm and professional manner and directed a slow flow of guests into the casino. At the end of the 4 hours, I had checked 460 bags, 1,724 IDs, and confiscated 46 fake IDs, 93 torchlighters, 58 bottles of wine, 9 packs of beer, and over 35 pounds of meds. My director came to personally check up on me and nearly lost it when he realized I took him seriously. "What the heck is wrong with you?" he asked. I restated his question to him. "You know I was kidding, right? Holy!" I laughed and walked off post as the night and shift had concluded. The bonus? $0. My job? Still a crap-paying gig. Do I want to do it again? If asked, I will comply maliciously. Am I the jerk for not giving up my seat on the bus? So I, 26 female, got on the bus after an 8-hour day at work. Now I get on at very first stop on the bus route and get off at the very last stop. The whole journey takes about 2 hours. When I got on the bus, it was quite busy on the bottom deck, with only one double seat left available. Usually I would go upstairs when it's this busy, but this time I had about 4 to 5 slightly heavy bags with me and didn't feel safe trying to get up the stairs with them, especially since I'm 18 weeks pregnant. So I sat on the seat downstairs. The bus emptied fairly quickly after a few stops and filled up again about halfway through the journey. This is where the problem started. An older lady with a stick got on the bus and, well, she asked me to move. She wasn't even polite when she asked, and honestly, I thought she meant move over so she could sit next to me. Then I moved my bags and started to scoot over, when she said,
No, I meant, can you find another seat? This seat is reserved for disabled people. You are clearly not disabled. There are plenty of seats upstairs.
These seats were not priority seats for disabled people. The ones in front of me were, which had an empty seat, but these ones were not, so I replied, "Sorry, I really don't feel safe going up the stairs with all these bags. I don't mind you sitting next to me though. We both have our masks on."
I don't want to sit next to anybody. I don't feel safe. So move your lazy behind and give the seat to someone who needs it.
I hate confrontation, and I absolutely can't stand people who use their pregnancy as an excuse, which means I hate what I said next. "Lady, I'm pregnant. I'm not going up those stairs with these bags and risking a fall. If you really want a seat to yourself, ask someone else to move." Before any more could be said, a man across from me said to the lady, "Here, love, have my seat." He got up, let her sit down, and went upstairs, but not before giving me a dirty look. The lady spent the next 10 to 15 minutes talking with the other oldies on the bus about how the kids these days have no respect for their elders or people with disabilities, or how they would have never spoken to someone like that in their day. This happened a couple of days ago, while my boyfriend and my dad said I was in the right, but I can't help but feel like I acted like an entitled brat. Not the jerk. You should have pointed out where the disabled seats were. Also, forget the older people who think their age entitles them to respect. They're usually the ones lacking manners. Edited to add. I'd like to point out I did not say forget all of the older people. I'm just sick of the ones who think their age is an excuse to be rude. It's the same as the ones who say, "It's just the way I've always been," or "That's how my generation is." Also, I'm sick of the ones who think being older entitles them to respect, but they refuse to give respect to younger people just because they're young. Newsflash, just because someone is young doesn't mean they don't have health issues or they don't have struggles, etc. Last but not least, for the ones going on about lockdown, not wanting to sit next to someone, elderly being at risk, pregnant women are at risk too. P.S. To those who messaged me about the horrible things that will happen to me when I'm elderly, I don't treat younger generations like crap, and I also don't expect special treatment just because I survived Y2K, 2012, 2020, so on and so forth. So I'm not worried. Not the jerk. 1. Not all disabilities are visible. The comment about you clearly not being disabled was ignorant at best. And even if you were disabled and in the designated seats, you would not have owed her an explanation. 2. You are pregnant and you told her this. End of story. Random stranger lady doesn't need to know more. 3. There was at least one open seat nearby and you pointed it out. That she didn't want the open seat does not make it your problem. Older lady sounds entitled and argumentative and likely accustomed to getting her way. Good for you for not giving in. Boss agrees with secretary that I'm not the office manager, so I stopped managing the office. When I was doing my articles at a small law firm, internship to be admitted as an attorney, I was the go-to person for everything at the office, setting up computers, buying stationery, paying bills, going to court, seeing clients, etc. After being admitted as an attorney, I continued doing all this because the secretary only did about 20% of what a secretary would usually do and refused to do anything else. My boss does some shady business, doesn't pay taxes, etc., so he couldn't just fire her for fear of her ratting him out. He also never disciplined her. We are not in the US. Since we worked from my boss's mother's house, the secretary also spent about 50% of her day just chatting to his mother, and they became fast friends. Guess who was always the evil one that everyone ganged up on? Yours truly. I was made out to be incompetent at my job, and I used to cry a lot and almost became an alcoholic from work stress. One day, the secretary got really upset with me after I asked her to buy stationery since we didn't have enough staples, and after a heated argument, told me that I'm not the office manager and should stop lording it about as if I was. Bear in mind, I was her senior, both as an attorney and a number of years worked at the firm. My boss did nothing and rather got upset with me, and so did his mother. I decided then and there, I am done doing both secretary work and my attorney work because I was working roughly 50 to 60 hours per week, standard is 40, trying to get everything done without receiving overpay. The unemployment rate in my country is around 30%, and in the legal field, supply of lawyers exceeds demand. She knew this, and my boss knew this, but no one cared, and I was basically working myself into an early grave. Cue malicious compliance. If everyone agrees that I am not the office manager, then I will stop managing the flow of the office and only do my attorney work. I stopped paying the bills, buying the stationery, reminding my boss of important meetings, etc. Within 2 weeks, the electricity was cut off for 10 days because it wasn't paid, and my boss's elderly mother and the rest of his family had no electricity. We could also not work for those 10 days. Once the electricity went on, the phone lines were cut because of non-payment. We could again not work. The post piled up. There was no stationery. We couldn't do service of court documents because our service providers cut us off. It went on for weeks. I simply worked around the issues and sorted my life out. One example, when the Wi-Fi was off, I used my cell phone to hotspot my laptop without telling anyone. In the end, my boss and his mother begged me to do what I used to, but I refused. Since I was focusing more on my actual work, my fees increased and my pay increased as well. Shortly thereafter, I moved away from that office to our secondary office and worked alongside lovely colleagues who all did what they got paid to do. I've been at this new office, same firm, just a different location, for the last 2 years. Pregnant sister demands to move in with me. For context, I, 22 female, live in a 2-bedroom apartment. My sister, 26, is 6 months pregnant and lives with her boyfriend. Long story short, her boyfriend is a jerk. My family hates him. He treats my sister like crap, but every time she goes back to him. Every time it's the same story. They fight and break up, he kicks her out, she moves in with me. We talk about her relationship and future. She says she's not getting back with him ever again, etc. And then within a few days, she's speaking to him again, and then within another few days, living with him again. Rinse and repeat. Well, the last time it happened was the last straw. I was going on holiday with friends for 10 days, but 3 days before I was meant to leave, my sister shows up at my home with her bags. They've broken up again, but this time it seemed permanent. I comfort her for the 3 days and even offer not to go on vacation and she and I can spend the week together. She says no and insists I go on and enjoy myself. So I do. When I leave, she's still heartbroken and I still feel pretty guilty, but I've saved up for this holiday for a while and probably won't get the opportunity again for a while because of lockdown. When I arrive home, my apartment is a state. Dishes piled up everywhere, rubbish all over the place, laundry in every room, etc. It was filthy and I was angry. I run up to the spare room and I find my sister and her boyfriend are in bed. The boyfriend that she was never getting back together with. I never gave her permission to let him into my home because I don't like him and I don't want him there. At this point, I'm angry, but I've also been traveling overnight, so I'm pretty exhausted. I calmly tell her to pack her stuff and both of them need to get out. They left with some fuss and didn't offer to clean or anything. The next day she comes around to get some of her stuff and I tell her that she's no longer welcome to stay in my home. She can visit during the day, but she will never be sleeping over here again. She took an attitude and said she didn't care. Fine, whatever. She wants to treat me and my home with that level of disrespect, then I don't have to go out of my way to help her out. So, when she got pregnant, my family basically reiterated to her that her boyfriend is not a good guy and she's leaving herself financially vulnerable by not getting her own place. He's manipulative, etc. Nothing is stopping her from getting her own place. She's just too lazy and wants everything handed to her. Well, I reiterated to her that if she wants to stay with her boyfriend, then she better not come crawling to me when he kicks her out again. She gets mad, says she doesn't need me anyway, etc. But I repeat it, making myself very clear. That brings us to now. She's 6 months pregnant. Boyfriend has kicked her out again and she has nowhere to go. Parents don't have the room for her or a baby, never mind both. I've repeated my stance from before and now she's calling me a jerk. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You stated your boundaries and the expectations. She disrespected your home when you had been incredibly generous. She makes the same choices time after time. What's the saying? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over while expecting a different outcome, or something like that. She chooses to stay in this unhealthy and unsteady relationship. She chose to keep the pregnancy. She will probably choose to keep the kid and subject it to this toxic environment and hectic back and forth nonsense, especially if she feels like she has somewhere to run away to. Stand your ground, if you so choose. It would even be kind to explain how their current relationship with the regular fighting and separating and making up is highly unhealthy and unstable for them as adults and would be even worse for a kid if she so chooses to keep the kid and stay in the relationship, and that you will not be a part of this any longer. Not the jerk. Your sister sounds rude and delusional. She knows you don't like her boyfriend, but still invited him over while you were on vacation and ignored the mess she made? Can you imagine the mess she will make if you allow her and a baby to stay? She will use the baby as an excuse, and you will become a second parent to the kid. If she's on the verge of being homeless, I'm sure your parents would make room for her, but they and you probably expect her to get back with her boyfriend in a few days, so they don't bother going through the trouble of making room. Hopefully, she will realize you are no longer her safety net and that she needs to get her crap together. Not the jerk. If you were to let her in now, you're not just going to be a roommate. You're going to be a provider for her and her baby. When she's short on cash, she'll come to you. When she needs someone to watch the baby, just for a minute, but she stays gone for hours, you again. When she needs diapers, formula, etc., and doesn't have the money, she's going to be looking at you. The mess she made with her boyfriend is nothing compared to the bottles, diapers, and laundry associated with a baby. And believe it or not, the above is the best case scenario. There's yet another option. She gets back with boyfriend and he moves in. One day you'll leave for work, and when you get home, he's there with all of his stuff, telling you that he has a right to be with the mother of his baby. You're a jerk if you try to keep them apart. She'll cry and tell you how horrible you are that you're keeping them from being a true family. It's your home, and you deserve to be comfortable in it. You deserve quiet, privacy, and peace of mind. Just say no. And anyone who contacts you to tell you you're a jerk for not letting your sister stay, tell them they can let your sister sleep on their couch. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let your sister come live with you or not? Please let us know.
Sometimes we just need to go no contact with people. She made her bed, now she gets to lie in it.
Crazy Karen attacks me over a toy. Sweet karma shows up. I never thought I would run across an actual Karen like those that I read about here, but yesterday I was proved wrong. So wrong. A bit of backstory. I have a 5-year-old daughter that is the best of friends with my neighbor's daughter who has special needs. The two are inseparable. My wife had bought our daughter a toy a few weeks ago as a reward for doing all of her chores and being awarded as Student of the Week in her kindergarten class. She immediately took it over to the neighbor's house and the two girls love to play with it. It's one of those toys that comes with accessories, slime, stickers, etc. Well, since then, this particular toy has been featured on a very popular morning talk show and is now pretty hard to find. My daughter's friend's birthday is the day after Thanksgiving and asked me if we could buy her best friend the same toy as her gift. We couldn't say no to her request for her best friend, so we started looking online to see if we could find one. After a few days of no luck, one of the very popular, more bougie of the big box stores had some in stock at a store about 30 minutes away. I hit the road to try and get my hands on one before they were all gone. This is what happened when I got there, and I still can't believe it happened. I got to the store, grabbed a shopping cart because I was going to grab a couple of other things while I was there, and walked straight to the toy department. I looked around for a few minutes before I finally saw the toy I was after. There was only one left, and I grabbed it and put it in my cart. I was so glad I finally found one. I started to walk away to continue shopping when I heard a voice behind me say,
Excuse me, but that toy was mine. I put it down and was coming right back for it. Do you mind?
I replied, "Oh, I'm sorry. I've been looking for this toy as a gift for a very special girl, and it was on the shelf, so I'm sorry, but no, I'm going to buy it." She instantly shot daggers at me with her eyes and said,
Excuse me? I was here first, and I need it more than you. I have a customer that ordered it, and I need it now, so please hand it over.
That's when it struck me. She's a reseller and had promised something she didn't have. At that point, I didn't. I was pretty much like, oh well, that's not my problem. But maybe they have more in the back. You should ask someone that works here. And went about my way to finish my shopping. As I was walking away, she snipped.
You're a real jerk. You know that?
I sarcastically responded, maybe, but I got what I came for. Have an awesome day, and walked away. I made my way to the laundry detergent aisle and quickly forgot about the lady. A few minutes later, as I grabbed some detergent and dryer sheets, I stopped to check what else was on my list. The same lady entered the aisle and quickly said,
There you are. Listen, I asked an employee, and they said there aren't any in the back, and they don't know when more are coming in. I would appreciate if you would do the right thing and just give it back to me before I find a manager and tell them you took it out of my hands.
I quickly responded, Huh? What are you talking about? This toy was on the shelf, and nobody else was around when I picked it up, so please leave me alone. You can't have it, and that's it. I tried to walk out of the aisle when this crazy Karen stepped in front of my cart, reached into my cart, and tried to take the toy. I quickly pulled the cart back and said, What is your problem, lady? Get away from me! She then tried again, but this time I put my hand on the toy before she could grab it. She then dug her nails into my arm before I smacked her hand away with a loud, What the heck, lady? Get away from me! This is when the crazy Karen went into overdrive. She instantly started screaming for help at the top of her lungs.
Help! Help! He's attacking me! Help me, somebody!
Naturally, a bunch of people quickly came over to see what was going on. And there I was, a 6'3" man with tattoos and a shaved head and beard standing there as she threw herself on the floor. Yes, she actually threw herself on the floor, screaming for help. I thought to myself, this is going to end badly for me. 2 employees were a couple of aisles over and came running. Now there were a few people and the employees looking at this Karen on the ground pleading for help and screaming for someone to call the police. The employee asked what happened while helping her up from the floor, and she immediately lied and said that I had attacked her and took her items from her cart. I quickly stated that this crazy lady is lying and she attacked, then threw herself on the floor to get me in trouble. A manager shows up and asks what happened while Karen is standing there with crocodile tears, saying that I attacked her over the toy. I quickly denied the false accusations and demanded the police be called. The manager had the police called and I waited right there. The lady had a crowd of people around her, consoling her, and they're all looking at me like I'm some sort of a monster. All the while, she's telling everyone around her what a monster I am and that she intends to press full charges on me for assault. After about 10 to 15 minutes, 2 police officers show up and start to ask questions about what had happened. I explained what happened from the beginning to end, and she told her twisted fairy tale. The officers asked if the security cameras had a shot of the area. We were escorted to the manager's office, and while one officer reviewed the footage with the manager, the other officer asked for our IDs and stepped out of the office, more than likely to do a warrant check, I assumed. This is when glorious karma showed up. After a couple of minutes of the officer reviewing the camera footage and her continued lies about what had happened, he asks Karen, "Ma'am, I'm only going to ask this once. Would you like to change your story about what happened?" I instantly smiled from ear to ear.
"What are you talking about? He attacked me and I want him arrested,"
said Karen. The officer responded, "Ma'am, that's not happening." He then turned to me and asked if I wanted to press charges for assault. My answer, "Oh yes." Karen went pale as a ghost. She went on a tirade. Just then, the second officer came back into the office, handed me back my ID, whispered something to the other officer, and then asked Karen to stand up and put her hands behind her back and arrested her for an outstanding felony warrant along with an assault charge. What an awesome outcome. The manager apologized to me for all the trouble as Karen was led out of the office in cuffs. The officer photographed the scratches on my arm for evidence, gave me a copy of the report for court, and wished me a nice rest of my day. The manager even gave me a $50 gift card that I used to pay for my purchase and went about my merry way. All this over a toy and self-entitlement. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law that my engagement ring is cursed? I, 26, female, just got engaged. My soon-to-be mother-in-law is a nightmare. We are currently renovating a part of our place, and she has been lent a key in the meantime because she keeps coming over uninvited under the guise of helping clean up, but she really just likes to snoop and interfere. I do a martial art and take my engagement ring off before class. I came home from an afternoon class one day and my engagement ring was not in the jewelry dish that I usually leave it in. I asked her about it and she told me that she had taken it into a jeweler to get it cleaned. She looked super smug about it, and when I asked which jeweler, she pretended she couldn't remember. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of having a reaction to it, so I just let it slide for a couple of days. A couple of days pass, and I ask her about it again, and she's super vague, still pretending she can't remember which jeweler, and saying she's too busy to go pick it up anytime soon. So I said, "Wow, I really feel for that jeweler. Hope nothing happens to her." She asked what I meant, and I told her that my superstitious Brazilian grandmother had performed some traditional ritual on it that's usually known to curse anyone who takes or handles the ring other than the owner. She looked uneasy and asked me a couple more questions about this ritual, and I made some story up about how my mother's ring had been taken by a burglar who was crushed by a pillar of cement on his way out of the house. I totally made this entire thing up, and I do have a Brazilian grandmother, but obviously she did not do some ritual to my ring. The next day, my fiance told me while I was out that she was there to clean up a bit. Lo and behold, I get home, she had already left, and find my ring where I had left it. It didn't look any cleaner than it had before. A week later, I receive a very mean phone call from her saying she had been in a minor car accident and she was blaming me and my witch doctor grandmother, saying she was now cursed for having touched it. I passed the phone to my fiance who tried to calm her down, but she was hysterical. I told my fiance what I had told her and he scolded me a bit because we both know how she is and I should have known she'd react this sort of way. It's been a further week since then and she refuses to talk to me and keeps slandering me to my fiance. Overall, he sort of recognizes how ridiculous she's being, but the drama of the situation is making me wonder if the whole curse tale was taking it a bit too far. So, am I the jerk? Update. I really did not expect this sort of a response to this post. Thank you all so much for the awards. Fiance and I have had a big chat, and he's admitted he has to step up when it comes to his mother. He retrieved her car an hour ago, and he told her not to worry about the curse because it would have no effect on anyone who touched it without malicious intent. Big thank you to the commenters who suggested that absolutely gold approach. Not the jerk. That's hilarious. The nerve of her taking your ring. She deserves the curse. I'm just sorry it's causing trouble for you. I kind of think your fiance earned it by tolerating her behavior and not having changed the locks already. Also, have you checked your ring? I don't understand why she'd take it unless it was to keep it away from you. Does she disapprove of the engagement? Or of you taking it off, even if it's for a good reason? Was she going to swap stones or claim to have lost it? I'd really need to know her motivation for taking it. You might want to come clean before she meets your grandmother at the wedding though. Not the jerk. You should tell her there's no way she could have been cursed since she took the ring with good intentions, and the curse only curses people with bad intentions. The reason you were worried about the jeweler is because some jewelers will steal rings and swap them out for fake stones, and you didn't know how honest the jeweler was because you didn't know them at all.
I'll bet she chokes on her own lies rather than admit she stole it to steal it. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know. I say she deserves the curse. Nothing's worse than an out-of-control mother-in-law. Ain't that right, Reddit boy? Story of my life, Karen. Story of my life. Take all the phone equipment out? You sure? Back in the dark ages, before Netflix, telephones at businesses used to be fixed lines with wires connecting the phone jack to a switching room. This was in the mid-1990s. I worked for the concession company at one of those huge event venues that hosted concerts, hockey games, and trade shows. I was the third in command, of sorts, in charge of being sure all of the concession stands were properly stocked and ready to go as each event began. I would fix stuff, set up the beer stands, and just generally be sure everything was ready to go. Overall, it was a sweet gig with backstage access to every concert as our office was next to the performer's dressing room. But all good things must come to an end, and the corporate office decided to not submit a bid to renew our 10-year contract. There was a fixed end date, and to plan the transition, there were a couple meetings with the new company that would be taking over. Okay? One major point of discussion is what would be left behind that was owned by the venue and what our company would be taking. Most things that were owned by our company that would be a pain to take were offered to the new company at a low price, a real steal. Beer coolers, central CO2 tank, grills, popcorn machines, etc. And the new company agreed to buy it all until we got to one item, the phone system. The building was huge with massive concrete walls and floors, so cell phones didn't work so great. So our company had installed landline telephones, all connected through the building's central telephone switching room. As our company paid for the phone system and it wouldn't be worth it to take the phones with us, we offered it to the new company for $500. They said no. A bit later at lunch, I heard one of the representatives for the new company laughing about the offer of the phone system. He muttered something to the effect that they could just hook their phones up to the wires and be ready to go for much cheaper. At the end of the meeting, we reviewed what was agreed. And in going over the phone equipment, the other company's representative said, "No, just take it all out." Okay. Now my boss, L, was pretty cool and a bit impish. Her boss, D, the head guy at our site, was a very straight-laced conservative guy. He didn't seem to have that slightly devilish streak in him. But when I came to the office the next day, D and L told me to do exactly what the other company asked for the phone system. Take it all out. I spent that day going to each concession stand, taking the phone off the wall, unscrewing the plate for the phone jack and removing that, and then pulling the phone lines as far as I could and reaching down into the wall to cut the wires. Each stand was left with a hole in the wall and phone lines that were cut about an inch below the edge of the hole. A fond farewell. The end of the contract was coming, and the very last day of our contract, I had the sad duty to deal with the leftover alcohol. Corporate did not have any other locations in our state with a liquor license, so we could not transfer stock to other locations across the state lines. D gave the order to pour the remaining liquor down the sink, and then he promptly left for lunch. With a wink from L, we poured a few partial bottles down the drain to give the office that smell of booze, and then we loaded the trunk of L's car with as many mixed cases as would fit and put the rest in our company van. L knew I didn't have a car, but she then suggested that I drive the van to get it washed. And what do you know? When I got back, the van was sparkling clean and empty of any boxes of booze. The aftermath. That winter, I attended a hockey game at the arena and noticed the hole still open in the wall of the concession stand. I guess they didn't just hook up their equipment to the wires after all. Am I the jerk? I bought my ex-wife a new car and helped her with some bills. Now my wife is mad. My ex-wife was a stay-at-home mom during our 16-year marriage, and since we got married very young, she has very little job experience and is in her 40s. She works at a diner as a waitress currently. She no longer receives alimony from me since she's remarried, automatically stopping the payments, which were originally lifetime, due to the fact that she was in her mid-30s with no education or job experience. Well, now that they divorced, she's had to get a job, since unlike with me, she didn't get hardly any spousal support from her last husband. The thing is, she doesn't make enough to really do much of anything. I have a lot of disposable income, likely more than people reading this would be willing to believe, and she has no disposable income. She fell way behind on bills and reached out to me as a last resort. So I asked my wife, thinking she'd say okay. She did not.
And almost immediately after, my ex and her car were involved in an accident. She had a hospital bill which totaled $77,000, and I paid that expense, along with buying her a new car, and gave her the money to catch up on bills, with extra to pay her monthly expenses till she gets back on her feet. My wife was upset when she found out. She claims my ex needs to fend for herself, but my ex is only in this position because she had to drop out to take care of our baby and ended up just staying home. When we split, she didn't have the credentials to make a living wage. I had quite literally no choice. I told her it would be cruel to watch the woman who enabled me to get to where I am suffer. She lost it and now won't talk to me. Not the jerk. It's one thing if she would be pestering you for money or trying to take advantage of you, but it's another if they're down on their luck. It's important to take care of the people that got you to where you are and that you've spent a significant amount of your life with. You ultimately went separate paths, but that doesn't mean you should watch them crumble. What you did was incredibly generous, and I'm sure it doesn't go without appreciation. That kind of act is honestly life-changing for the recipient and incredibly rewarding for you as well. I understand your wife's point of view, but I think you should really try to widen her horizons to see the bigger picture. You're not being extorted. You've made the decision yourself as an adult and weighed any repercussions. Not the jerk. Your ex-wife was a victim of divorce rules that don't make a lot of sense in this situation. Her new marriage didn't magically obviate the fact that in your partnership together, she took the stay-at-home duties at the expense of her future earning potential. Regardless of the law, you have a moral obligation here. Or at the very least, you are not being the jerk to feel that you have a moral obligation. It's complicated because you also have an obligation to your current wife to work in partnership. Ideally, that should not just be about your shared decision-making, but also shared values. She is being a lot more selfish with your money than you are, which is possibly justified, but still mildly jerky given the obligation that you feel. You're the jerk. Your ex-wife had lifelong alimony, and I'm assuming it was a decent amount by your comment of how much disposable income you have. So not only were you paying her alimony, but since you had a baby, she was also collecting child support due to your sizable disposable income. I'm going out on a limb and would wager the child support was also a decent amount. Your wife could have chosen to not get remarried and not lose the court's award of lifelong alimony, which is extremely generous. That was her choice. She also got divorced for a second time. People make choices in life. She was a wife 2 times and a mother. She is not a child. It is nice of you to give at a minimum $100,000 to your ex-wife. However, you are doing it at the detriment of your current wife. If my husband were to give his ex-wife a minimum of $100,000, I would be aggravated, to put it mildly. She had a comfortable situation. She got remarried and she ended that arrangement. You're the jerk for actually still giving her the money. It is not your fault she got remarried. Her and her ex-husband could have lived together. They did not need to get married. I feel bad for your current wife. Well, who do you agree with? OP or his wife? Please let us know. If you gave $100,000 to your ex-wife, you'd need a new head. Guest complains about me to me. This happened a couple of days ago and I'm still laughing. I was covering the front desk while the front desk person finished delivering lunch stuff and a lady comes in. The check-in goes fine, and as I'm handling her the key card, she sees the front desk person bringing back the trolley with a couple of dirty dishes, etc. On one of the plates was a cinnamon bun. The guest points to the bun. Guest: "Can I have that bun?" Me, alarmed that she's about to take a bun off of an obviously dirty plate. Me: "Ma'am, that's a dirty plate." "Yeah, but they didn't touch the bun. It's fine." Me: "I can't let you, unfortunately." Karen: "Can I have a fresh one then?" Me: "That comes with a breakfast package, and you'll get a fresh one tomorrow morning. They're great." Karen: "Isn't there another one I can have?" Me: "We bring them in fresh each morning, one per guest, so we don't have any more, I'm afraid. But the cafe that bakes them is about 20 steps from here, and sometimes they'll have stuff still available, but they're often sold out because they're so good." "You're going to eat that bun as soon as I leave, aren't you?" Me: "I assure you, ma'am, I'm not." Guest leaves angry. I won't let her eat a garbage cinnamon bun. Fast forward a couple of days at checkout time, I get a call from front desk as a customer wants to escalate a complaint about an employee. So I head to the front desk and there's Cinnamon Bun Lady. Me: "Hi ma'am, I can speak with you over here." And I direct her to speak with me in the waiting area. Me: "I'm very sorry you've had a bad experience. Can you tell me more about it so I can make things right?" Karen: "When I checked in,
Your employee wouldn't let me have one of those free cinnamon buns and was very rude about it.
I blinked a couple of times, and then it dawned on me. She had forgotten it was me. Me, still not quite believing she doesn't recognize me. Can you tell me what they looked like? Karen.
Gray hair.
Yes.
Glasses.
Nope.
Tall.
Complete opposite.
And wasn't even in uniform.
Management has a different dress code, and I feel like that's the norm.
How do I know that wasn't someone just stealing my information?
Me. All right, I have their description. Did that person give you a working key card?
Yeah.
Me. Then they would have to enter a functioning staff number to program your card, so I can assure you that it was an employee.
Well, do you know who it was?
Me. Still not believing this woman was being serious. Yes.
Can you make sure she's not allowed to be rude anymore? People won't come back when you have staff like that. I'm going to leave a review and forward it to your boss.
I still can't quite believe she didn't know it was me. But regardless, I can't imagine getting this angry over me not letting you eat food off a stranger's plate. Like, how are you even still alive? She 100% emailed my boss her review, and it's one of those reviews, when you read it, it becomes immediately clear she's just extremely angry I told her no. Am I the jerk for not giving a stranger my brother's iCloud password? I, female 20, have recently been contacted by a stranger via email regarding them purchasing my brother's, male 17, old iPhone 8. They are unable to remove his email from the phone without his password and found my email in his contacts after my brother didn't answer. I confronted my brother about it, who said he never sold his iPhone 8 because he couldn't find it anywhere. We moved before he sold it, so there's a chance it got lost. He doesn't use it, so whatever. My mom probably sold it. This man starts asking for my brother's iCloud password to remove the email from the device. I refused and asked him where he got the phone and who sold it to him. He told me he bought it on Facebook from a young man in a city 1.5 hours away from us. We've never been to this city, and my brother is too young to go on his own. I told him it must have been stolen from us, and I will not provide him the password. However, if he could somehow manage to get it to us, we could enter the password for him. He said no, which is understandable. I recommended he contact Apple for a factory reset. I wanted to help/give him advice without providing a password. Today he responded to me saying,
Thanks. Oh, and just so you know, it's not hard to change a password. I'm not a moron.
I told him we're not responsible for him being sold a phone that was stolen from us and not obligated to share an email password with a complete stranger. He called me names, told me to lose the attitude, stop responding to his emails or he'd report me. Not the jerk. Your brother's phone was stolen and this guy wants the key to any and all info stored on the cloud? Big nope. Big red flag. Then when he doesn't get his way, he calls you names and threatens to report you? Call the cops on this idiot. He's probably the one that stole it. Get your brother's phone back, even if he doesn't use it. Not the jerk. That guy was a moron. I bought a used phone and it shows that someone, who wasn't the guy who sold it to me, actually owned it. You think it might be stolen, dude? Really? How stupid was that guy? You should contact your former cell phone provider and report that the phone was stolen. My Karen sister expects me to hand over $20,000. Let me give you the relevant background. Me, 32, female, and my twin sister have a great uncle. He and his husband are child-free, and we are the only kids in the whole family. When we were high school freshmen, he sat us down and told us that he would like to leave us his practice, orthodontics, to us if we wanted him to. I agreed and worked hard for it. My sister, on the other hand, always wanted to be a homemaker. Nothing wrong with that. When we were accepted to college, he paid for mine and gave an equal amount to her that she used on a big wedding and a grand honeymoon. Her husband has a great job, but they've always been deep in debt because they like to keep up with the Joneses. New car each year, grand vacations, kids in private schools, and a ton of extracurriculars. 2 years ago, I finally was able to join my uncle's practice, so he transferred everything to my name and left his huge paid-off house and a gated community to my sister. Then he and his husband moved to Florida to live the life. It was just bad luck that a few months later, lockdown hit and the practice started suffering. And that's when my sister started on the gloating about how she was the smarter twin in the end, how she ended up with a paid-for house and a great family, while I was an old maid with a worthless practice. I ignored her remarks the same as I've been doing for years. Then restrictions eased and I started making money. I just bought a condo and a Tesla. 2 days ago, she invited me, then she asked me for $20,000. Apparently, they took a mortgage on the house because her husband lost his job, and now they are behind on their house payments, car payments, all the bills, and the kids' tuition. I was sympathetic, offered to help her budget, said that if they gave back their cars, I could pay the difference and get them a used one. Also that I would get them current on essential bills and get them food, but that was that. She got angry, said I was a bad sister, and that I was lording the fact that I was a successful doctor over her, that I wanted to see her brought low. I couldn't accept the disrespect in my own house, so I asked her to leave and to only contact me when she was ready to apologize and act rational about her situation. She called me a jerk and left. Then she blocked me from everywhere and went whining to our parents. I still think that I'm in the right, but I don't want to see my nephews and niece become homeless. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. If you start handing money over now, it will never stop. Family are the worst when it comes to money, bar none. If she's not willing to shift and budget, she is literally just wanting your money. It has nothing to do with keeping a roof over her head. If things were that bad, she would be okay budgeting. This is an issue they brought on themselves, and if you bail them out now, you will be bailing them out for years. Do not become the family ATM. Not the jerk. They can apply for assistance like everyone else. They're also both able-bodied adults, so if they want to maintain an extravagant lifestyle, they can get jobs to support it. You were quite generous to offer to help them catch up and buy food. That's more than most people struggling right now have help with. You're not obligated to help her at all, yet you did, despite her insults during the shutdown. Your sister needs to grow up, and if your parents are enabling her behavior, they can go into debt helping her if they want to. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. Sister made her bed, now she gets to lie in it. Am I the jerk for getting mad at my boyfriend for saying I don't deserve the money I make? I'm a 28-year-old woman, and I got really lucky to get the job I have right now. I studied electrical and computer engineering in college and job hopped 4 times. Each time I switched jobs, I negotiated really hard for pay and benefits. I'm making $160,000 now, working remotely and living in a very low cost of living area. It's a really nice gig, and I recognize I'm extremely lucky to have interests that line up with a super well-paying industry, and super lucky to have been able to go to college at all. But despite that, I feel like I did work to deserve it somewhat. College was super demanding and difficult. My first few jobs had grueling schedules, and I feel like I'm being paid more for the knowledge I built over all that time. But still, I have to admit, it's pretty cushy. I never work over 40 hours a week. My coworkers never contact me about work outside of my 9 to 5. I get paid stupid good money for it, and I have 2 months vacation time. So, on to the conflict. My boyfriend used to work outside the home. He's an IT admin at a large company. But because of the lockdown, his job became partially remote. So we're working out of the same house, and I think he sees how different our jobs and pay are. He makes $65,000 a year and works a lot longer hours. He usually starts his day at 7 or 8 a.m. and works until 6 or 7 p.m. He more often has to work weekends to do IT stuff, and he's on call for emergencies with his personal phone. And it seems like they're having emergencies every week. So, since we've been working from home together, he makes comments about it occasionally, like, "Must be nice," kinds of things. Recently, he's gotten more frustrated with me though. Yesterday, I had a bad headache, so I told my boss that I was going to be away from my desk for a while since I wasn't feeling well. I blocked out a 2-hour meeting on my calendar so people wouldn't try and reach me, and I took a nap. My boyfriend saw me napping during work and said, "They're really paying you to sleep, huh?" I snapped at him, saying that they were paying me for my skills and that I didn't care for the way he had been talking about my job. He said something petty about my skills at napping and wasting time on Zoom, and how that's definitely worth 6 figures, and I got really irritated and said that just because he was underpaid doesn't mean that he could call me overpaid, and if he was mad, he should go take that out on his boss, not me. He said that I was being ridiculous. He'd be in trouble at work if he did. I said maybe he needs to find a better job if his boss isn't ready to talk money. He called me privileged and out of touch and said that it isn't that easy to just go find a better job. I said that if you don't try, you're never going to know. He got irritated and stormed out. Am I the jerk for how I talked to my boyfriend about work? Not the jerk. So you've worked hard in college and you've got a great degree, changed jobs 4 times and gone through the new job grill, cracked 4 interviews, negotiated well, work a full-time job, and you talk like it's all easy and you're not doing anything major? Girl, you don't appreciate yourself, and I think it might have something to do with your man. I make more than my husband, and not once has my husband spoken to me like this. You need to get out because he's not going to understand or change. This is who he is. He's jealous and petty and insecure. If he can't let you nap when you have a headache, he doesn't love you. I'm sorry, but the longer you stay, you're totally going to stop loving yourself. Talk to a few friends, talk to a therapist, get your thoughts and feelings in order, and get out. Everyone sucks here. You're not the jerk for being successful. I bet you did work hard to get to where you are, and you seem genuinely aware that you also got extremely lucky. That said, you are privileged. You do have special advantages most people do not have, both with your salary and being able to nap at work, and you do sound a little out of touch with how difficult it is for your partner in his field. And you're the jerk for talking to him as though his problems are all his fault and easy to solve. Similarly, he's the jerk for being passive-aggressive towards you. You guys need to have an honest and open conversation, acknowledging your behaviors and feelings around this issue, along with the mistakes you both made in relating to one another. Then talk about what you can each do to relate to each other in a more constructive way moving forward. Good luck, OP. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
He needs to quit that belly aching. If Reddit boy over here made as much as she does, I'd probably actually love him.
Am I the jerk for laughing at a child-free woman wanting to be a housewife? I've been online dating for quite a while. My profile very clearly states, I'm dating with marriage as the end goal. I matched a few weeks ago with a charming woman who said she also was dating with the intent to get married, with the caveat of wanting a traditional relationship where she would be a housewife. I agree that I would be happy with that arrangement in the future. We chat about a variety of subjects and set up a date for an early dinner 2 weeks out, today. Much to my surprise, during the date, she casually mentioned she doesn't want to have kids. In my confusion, I ask her, "But you said you were looking to become a housewife." She responds, "You can be a housewife and still not want kids." Admittedly, I did chuckle, but it wasn't a full-belly roar of a laugh, just a chuckle. She took great offense to my laugh and asks, "Why can't I be child-free and a housewife?" My response was, "What will you be doing all day?" She says, "What do older housewives do after their kids go off on their own?" My response was, "Usually back to work." I told her it's going to be next to impossible to find a man willing to take that deal. She gets angry and leaves. I tell my sister, and she thinks I crushed that poor woman's dreams. Am I the jerk for telling her the truth? You're the jerk. It is incredibly rude to laugh in someone's face who's being genuine and honest with you. It's also not that crazy that if her future partner makes enough that she doesn't need to work, then she can stay home. My wife didn't work for several years before we even decided to have kids. I didn't want her to have to work. Seems pretty dumb to me to take up someone's free time for no real reason. Again, as long as finances can be managed by one of you. What will she do? Watch TV, see her family and friends, be stress-free, feel happier. I don't know why you wouldn't want that for the person you love if you have the opportunity to provide it. You may think her way of thinking is childish as you smugly laughed at the premise. It is even more childish to live in this world where everything needs to be fair, and if I have to work, you have to work too. Not the jerk. Everyone in this thread is like, she wants to stay home and do nothing? How dare you laugh at her? If the roles were reversed, he's a lazy freeloader. Don't let him be a worthless bum on your dime. I'm going to get downvoted to heck, but I've seen far too many of the reversed posts where it immediately means the man is a worthless bum. Everyone does chores around the house. If you're child-free, get a job. You don't get to laze about every day with minimal duties and expect everyone to accept you. Will she find a partner willing? Probably. But does it need to be you, and is your laughing a jerk move? No, not the jerk. This thread is ridiculous. What do you think? Was OP the jerk for laughing when she said this to him, or not? Please let us know.
At least he took her on a date. You haven't taken me anywhere since 1999.
I no longer help out customers as much as I used to, and for good reason. I work at an AT&T-based cell phone service retailer. Started 2 to 3 months ago, and have overall loved it and have exceeded at it. I also got nothing but great reviews, and people always generally considering me very helpful, and indeed, I try to be. But not as much as I used to. No, not at all. And that's because some customers ruin it for everyone else. Let me tell you a little story. It was once a late dark evening in September, and a couple walked into our store, looking to join our service. Everything was going well, we got along. I helped them out and showed them our selection of phones and plans. They both ended up buying new cell phones, and everyone was happy. I could have left it right there, but decided to be a good Samaritan and go the extra step by asking the couple if they wanted help setting up their email. Bad idea. At first, they eagerly said yes and thanked me, so I opened up Gmail on each of their phones and got started. The wife was able to set up her email just fine, but the chap, on the other hand, he forgot his email password. We tried every which way to reset his password or bypass it, but nothing worked. This is when, suddenly, all heck broke loose. The man started breathing heavily, almost hyperventilating, and his fists clenched up. He then suddenly screamed, "Rah!" and got up and proceeded to smash his phone into the ground while grunting and breathing like a wild beast. He then exited the store and continued to smash the phone. Y'all didn't call the police? To smash the phone some more on the open concrete until it was reduced to pieces. While I stood there half shook, half confused, and half concerned for my own safety, his wife was just sitting there, scrolling through her phone as if nothing happened, and just simply said in a gentle laughing tone, "I don't know why he's freaking out. Ha!" As if she was fully used to this behavior. I then handed her their bag, and they went on their way. I just stood there alone for a minute in the open silence, reflecting on what the heck just happened. And suddenly, I remembered what one of those people who trained me a few months back said to me in response to when I asked him what his main philosophy of dealing with customers is. He replied, "As soon as the customer walks in, I try to get them out of my face as quickly as humanly possible." At first, I disagreed with him because I value customer service, but now I'm starting to think he was right. OP, it's nice of you to go the extra mile. I am/was the same way. Going the extra effort for my customers. I still don't regret it, I'm just more strategic nowadays. Your job requirements ended once they made the purchase. Setting up the email was not a variable of the transaction. What might seem like an easy and quick thing to do, as you can tell, can spiral into something completely different. Yeah, I'll say. I believe you got off easy here. They could have easily blamed you for the email not working. They could have then wanted to return the gear. No sale for you and all that time wasted. They could have talked to your manager, saying that you invaded their privacy in regards to the email. Even if nothing went wrong, you might have lost out on a potential sale or customer that walked in halfway through your email setup. There are a lot of downsides to what you did. Just take it as a learning lesson for next time. Am I the jerk for getting mad because my girlfriend let her brother stay in our apartment without permission? Uh-oh. I, 23, male, and my girlfriend, 21, female, have been dating for 2 years. I started dating her because I was attracted to her intelligence. She always gave me good advice in work and personal matters. She is very successful career-wise and doesn't let anyone walk over her. But I have been questioning this impression of her lately. I moved in with her 6 months after we started dating. Her brother, then 16, was already living with her at the time as their parents had passed. To be honest, it was uncomfortable living with a third person because I couldn't spend quality time with my girlfriend, and I could tell her brother didn't like me. I put up with it because he was still a kid, and I felt bad for their situation. Last month, the brother turned 18. Although my girlfriend's name is on the contract, I help pay the bills and do chores around the house. But the brother has never contributed financially. It's not like he can't. He's worked part-time jobs since he was 15, but my girlfriend refuses to let him pay to stay with us because he needs the money for his college fund. I was fine with this until he became an adult. Now he should have to do his part, and I told him as such. He said he would do more chores and run errands instead of paying because he doesn't have money, despite having 2 part-time jobs. So I went to my girlfriend about it. She said that if I felt the split wasn't fair, she would pay 2/3 of the rent on behalf of her brother and I could pay the rest. I started to get angry then and told her that it's not right for her to be letting an adult man leech off of us. I made it very clear that the brother shouldn't be living with us now that he's no longer a minor. He has been constantly leeching off my girlfriend by letting her pay for his tuition fees, college applications, etc., while giving nothing in return. When both of them started ignoring me, I packed up the brother's stuff and told him to leave. My girlfriend went totally nuts. She threw a fit and said that I was overstepping my boundaries. She went on this spiel about how her family is her top priority, even though I'm the one who supported her for the last couple years, and how I had no right to bully an 18-year-old. When I tried to explain how she's being a pushover for letting her brother walk all over her, she screamed to get out and never come back. I was obviously shocked at being kicked out of my own home, so I refused and she threatened me with the police. I grabbed my stuff and went, and I'm now waiting for her to get over it so I can return. I've had to stay on a friend's couch for the last few days because my girlfriend of 2 years cares about doing everything for another man, completely ignoring how she overstepped my boundaries by allowing an outsider in our place. Am I the jerk for getting upset? Edit. I want to make it clear that I didn't immediately try to throw out the brother when he turned 18. I spoke to both of them multiple times explaining the situation, but it was ignored. I tried talking about it for half a month before doing this as a last resort. Edit 2. After some consideration, I've decided that finding my own place and living arrangements will be for the better. Clearly, my girlfriend refuses to place any responsibility on her brother, so he'll be there for who knows how long. I'll wait for her to unblock me and get in contact to have a serious discussion about our relationship, and hopefully we'll both apologize for losing our cool and move on. If not, well, there are plenty of fish in the sea. You're the jerk. Wow, everything in this entire post was me. Your girlfriend undertook one of the most difficult things a person can go through and is doing a great job at it, and all you can talk about is yourself and how you feel about it. Nothing about how amazing she is and how a lesser person would crumble. Little appreciation. You're bitter, and if you don't change, this relationship is going to move on without you. You're the jerk. You are the outsider. Her brother is more than her brother. She's taken on a parental role when the parents passed. She's helping him and guiding him to being an adult. Were you kicked out the moment you turned 18? Were you expected to pay rent as a teenager? Did your parents help you with college applications? I sincerely hope your girlfriend comes to her senses and completely ends things with you. You're the jerk. Dude, I can't believe this needs to be explained to you. First, she's not doing all of these things for another man. It's her brother, who she has raised for the past few years after their parents passed. I mean, good on her. Second, you moved in with them. You don't get to just kick him out when he was there first. Didn't like living with a third person? Too bad. That's what you agreed to when you moved in with her and her brother. Your girlfriend is taking on the role of his parent because they don't have any. That means supporting him, including financially, if she so chooses, which she has. Of course, she's choosing him over you because she's not the jerk. You are. This isn't going to change. You moved into their home. You act like some jerk stepfather who wants to ship the kids off to boot camp as soon as he's married the mom. Remember when you said at the very beginning of this how she doesn't let anyone walk all over her? That includes you. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for how he acted or not? Please let us know. I think jerk would be an understatement, to be honest. Why is the music so loud? I work at an office supplies store. This happened to my coworker, and I saw it all go down. A lady comes in asking if we fix printers. She shoves a really beat up machine on the counter. Coworker: unfortunately, we don't. However, there's another store down the street called Redacted that does. I can tell you how to get there if you want. Karen: what do you mean you don't? You fixed my last printer. Coworker: oh, I see. Well, we don't have any specific printer fixing tools or anything. Are you sure it was this store? Yes. Ah, well, maybe we did in the past, but we don't currently fix them. Sorry about that. It goes back and forth like this for a few minutes while the lady absolutely insists that we fix printers, as if we're just pretending not to, simply for the sake of being a jerk. Eventually, she seems like she's about to relent
but points something else out.
Why is the music so loud?
For reference, we have the usual generic music playing over the intercoms like every retail establishment in America. It's not at an inappropriate volume by any means. I'd turn it down if I could, just because the songs are repetitive, but that's neither here nor there. Coworker: I'm sorry, I have no control over the sound system.
Can't you go turn it down?
No ma'am, I can't. It's all set by corporate. We can't adjust the volume or change the songs or anything. They actually call us if we try to adjust it.
But it's too loud.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Come on, there has to be something you can do about it. What if I came in here and just started screaming at everyone?
I'd call a manager over to ask you to leave.
Okay, so call a manager to have them turn down the music.
He does. Our manager comes up and basically repeats the exact same information about how there's nothing we can do. She sits there like a deer in the headlights for about 10 seconds.
Well, that's unacceptable to me.
Manager: I'm sorry, ma'am. She proceeds to slam her printer on the desk and speed walks out of the store. As always with these customers, we spend the next 5 minutes ruthlessly mocking her once she's out of earshot.
I'm not the lab tech, but you have given me a urine sample before. I work as a dentist in a really small rural town about an hour outside of our mid-sized city of about 250,000 people. Because I'm one of the only dentists in town, and because I'm the only one that will do more complicated extractions and root canals, I dress in surgical scrubs every day. I got tired of laundering bloodstains out of my dress shirts and white lab jackets. A few years ago, I was diagnosed with AFib. I visit my cardiologist about every 6 months just to keep him in business. This last time, as I was checking in at his front desk at the hospital for my appointment, I apparently offended the giant lady behind me by having to update my insurance information and address with a nice lady behind the desk. I was midway through giving nice lady my new address when Karen taps me aggressively on the shoulder. Can't you guys talk on your lunch break or something? I've got another appointment after this. Immediately, I turn on my impassive, expressionless face I use with my own agitated patients. Rather than responding immediately, I finished giving my information to nice lady. When I was done, I turned to face Karen, who was not pleased with my delayed response. I'm not a small man. The word husky has been thrown around a time or two. But I felt small standing there with her glaring down at me. I think you've confused the situation here, ma'am. I'm a patient here checking in for my appointment. As soon as nice lady is done with me, I'll go sit down and you can check in. I thought I was polite, but I think nice lady was smirking or grinning behind me because Karen just about had an aneurysm on the spot. I've been coming here for 6 years, she shrieked. I just stared at her evenly. I know you've drawn my blood before. I just kept staring blankly for a moment, then said, No, I haven't. I'm a dentist. And at that moment, I remembered her. She had been an emergency patient I had seen one time only for a toothache years before when I worked in a practice here in town. It had been a catastrophic visit, and she never came back. She remembered me at that same moment, and she saw in my expression that I remembered her. Oh yeah, was all she said and stepped back. I quickly wrapped up my business with nice lady and meekly sat in a chair. Karen eventually made her way into the waiting room and sat with her back resolutely towards me until I was called back by the nurse. I went through my cardiology checkup and had forgotten about my GL by the time I was done. As I went to leave, I waved at nice lady on my way out. Pro tip, always be extra polite and kind to the office support staff. They have way more influence over your provider's attitude towards you than you realize. How you treat them can influence how your doctor treats you. Nice lady waved me over before I left and told me in a quiet voice that I was the first person to ever shut Karen down mid-attack. I guess Karen is in there at least monthly, and she is always rude and demanding, and most people, being intimidated by her size, just defer and let her have her way. I just smiled and said, guess I'm just lucky. She smiled and I walked off. I am not lucky. What I couldn't say because of HIPAA, American law governing the share of personal health information, is that when Karen was my patient for exactly one visit, I had pulled a really loose infected tooth for her. After the really simple extraction, as I was placing some gauze over the bleeding hole and telling her to relax in the chair and not stand up too fast if she felt lightheaded, she did exactly that. She stood straight up, immediately swayed, and passed out, crashing headfirst over the chair into the tray of used instruments.
The chair completely gave out and collapsed, screaming and groaning to the floor. Karen went to the bathroom in her collapse, and the smell literally made my assistant retch. We spent the next few hurried minutes getting her revived and on oxygen. I'm not a small guy, as I've said, but we could not physically move her. And once she was down, apparently she could not physically move herself either. She had to lay there over our twisted chair, breathing on oxygen, yelling and bleeding from her mouth, in a pool of her own waste for a solid 15 minutes until 6 burly EMS guys could squeeze into our little overcrowded operatory to hoist her up and escort her out to the ambulance. She was not pleased. She apparently recovered and lived to make the lives of other healthcare workers full of interest and entertainment. The chair, however, did not recover. It had to be replaced. I've seen her one other time since then in the far-off distance of Walmart, putting along laboriously on a motorized cart. I guess the moral of the story is that if you are going to aggressively mistake someone as a lazy employee of your doctor, make sure first that he's not someone you already know from an extremely embarrassing prior encounter. Am I the jerk for walking out of a practice after my substitute swim coach told me I couldn't? For some background, I, 15 female, have been swimming competitively for a club team for a little over 7 years, which means I know every coach very well and have been coached by almost all of them at some point. I also work for the swim team and teach swim lessons to the younger kids. This is an official job. I have a work permit and receive consistent pay for teaching these lessons. I teach swim lessons for the team twice a week. The lessons are scheduled to start 10 minutes after my practice gets done. So if I am coaching, I typically get out of practice about 5 to 10 minutes early so I can shower and change. My supervisor likes us to be a few minutes early, and I also like to look presentable at least and be a good role model to the kids. The other day, my current coach, 30-ish male, wasn't able to make our practice, which doesn't happen very often. Instead of canceling practice, another one of my coaches, 50-ish female, took his place. We all knew this coach very well, and I personally had her as a coach for 3.5 years. She had a lot of experience and was constantly going to conventions to learn how to coach her swimmers better. My typical coach is very aware that I leave early on these days, as it has been going on for several weeks. When I saw we had the other coach for the day, I immediately went up to her and told her I would be getting out early. She replied by saying 10 minutes was plenty of time. I tried to explain that the job started in 10 minutes and I needed to be there early, but she insisted that 10 minutes was enough. At this point in my life, saving up for a car, I prioritized my job over athletics and decided I would be leaving when I needed to, no matter what she said. About 10 minutes early, I got out of the pool and put my equipment away. The substitute coach stopped me and told me to get back in the pool and finish my current set, which would be ending in a few minutes after practice should end, actually. I repeated myself, telling her that I had to leave to get ready for work, but she told me again to put my cap back on. I then proceeded to tell her how I admired her as a coach. She was always learning new coaching techniques, and she had so much experience and knowledge, but I needed to leave. I calmly stated that my job isn't optional, and that my supervisor expected me to be there early. Even after all this, she was still upset and told me to get back in the pool. I firmly said that I was not asking for permission, I was telling her I was leaving, and then walked out. She was gone by the time I returned to the pool deck to begin work. I have never stood up to an adult like that, and I'm wondering if I made the right decision. I don't want her to tell my normal coach and have him be upset either. Am I the jerk? Edit. Wow, that blew up fast. I didn't expect such a large response so quickly. I thought I should add that my supervisor has expressed he likes us there early. My normal coach is also fully aware of my schedule. Additionally, I am paid for the full hour. The lesson is only 50 minutes, but we have to gather equipment and organize the kids before it starts, so I like to be early because I am being paid for those 10 minutes before we start. Thanks for all the feedback. Karen wants to give birth to her baby at my house. My brother has made a really weird request of me. He asked me if him and his girlfriend could use my house to give birth at. I didn't even know what he was getting at first, but he explained to me that their apartment doesn't have a bathtub. It's too small for an inflatable pool, and it would attract too much attention if the birth was there, and the neighbors will likely call the authorities. I have a house instead of an apartment, and I have a bathtub and more room than them. My brother thinks I should be honored about this. I thought this was so weird. I thought they would go to the hospital, like normal, but they haven't used a doctor at all, so I have no idea how it works
and if the hospital would ask who their doctor is. My brother said I don't have to be there if I feel uncomfortable. I don't have a problem with him or his girlfriend, but I feel strange at the thought of leaving the two of them alone in my house. I'm a guy and I don't have kids, so I admit to no experience in this area, but I'm also worried something could go wrong because neither my brother nor his girlfriend are doctors or have any medical training. My brother and his girlfriend have been saying how upset they'll be if I say no, that the mother being comfortable is what's most important, and I shouldn't deny her, and that I'll look like a jerk if I turn down their request because they don't have a backup house. I just don't get why they can't go to the hospital, even though I have not said it. My mom also hinted one time to me it would be a nice thing to do. Would I be the jerk if I didn't let them use my house for the birth? Because it makes me feel weird and uncomfortable, and I would prefer they use a hospital? Not the jerk. I would not feel comfortable with a first-time birth with no medical backup planned in my home. I mean, it's a strange request anyway. Plus, it requires a lot of flexibility. You could be on call for 4 weeks with everything that entails, and then potentially not get your home back quickly afterwards, even if all goes perfectly. Direct them to find a doula or medical advice and go from there. There's no need to lend them your home. You would not be the jerk. This is a weird ask. It also comes with other questions and planning. How far do they live from you? Would they expect to live in your house for the last month of her pregnancy? Babies are notorious for showing up on their schedule and no one else's. It's kind of their thing. This would mean that you'd have to have an area prepped for a couple of weeks just in case. It's not a simple matter of them popping up at 6:30 for a 7 p.m. reservation next Tuesday. Do they have a midwife? Where will she or he stay? Is someone else going to provide the supplies like towels and such? You're the jerk. The fact that your brother and his wife are even willing to welcome their baby into the world in your home is a huge honor. You refusing this opportunity speaks volumes about you and your lack of respect for them. Don't be surprised if/when they cut contact. Edit. Downvote me all you want. I could really care less. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let them have the baby in your house or not? Please let us know.
Tell them to head over to our house. We've got a spare bathroom. They can pay in installments if they have to.
Entitled sister-in-law stole our baby's name. Now she regrets it. My wife and I spent 4 years trying to get pregnant before the wrong side of 35. We are currently 33, respectively now, and are blessed with a wonderful infant son. My wife has a younger half-sister that she has been low contact with for some time. The woman is entitled and toxic, and her mother's golden child. We've refused to let her or my mother-in-law in the house since they both blatantly tried to make off with my wife's jewelry box a couple of years ago. The box contained a lot of valuable jewelry inherited from my wife's grandmother. Said jewelry is now in a safety deposit box, as per my suggestion. My wife and I had nearly given up trying to conceive when it suddenly happened, and we were ecstatic. After we found out we were having a baby, we started looking into names. I ended up suggesting the name of my Scottish grandfather, and my wife loved it. So that's the name we settled on. But we made the mistake of posting about it on social media. Well, no surprise to the stereotype in this mess, my sister-in-law was pregnant too, and was months further along than my wife and also having a boy. She decided to claim my grandfather's name for her own son, and not just the first name, but the middle name too. We called her upset over what she was doing, and she smugly told us there's nothing we can do about it, which she was sort of right. There was nothing we could do about it legally, as it's not a crime to steal planned babies' names. We realized that drama was exactly what my sister-in-law wanted, and she thought that by taking the name for herself, we'd not be able to use it. I laughed and told her that while what she did was dirty and underhanded, we would keep our chosen name, and she could just deal with it whether she decides to go through with copying us or not. Well, my sister-in-law's baby daddy called me and said I was an unreasonable jerk for still wanting to use the name after sister-in-law claimed it. I said she claimed nothing, and since we couldn't own the name, then neither could they. Before he ended the call, he threatened me by saying I'd be sorry if we didn't change the name. Then he hung up before I could respond. Months later, sister-in-law has a healthy baby boy and names him my grandfather's name. We did not show up for the birth, both because of the lockdown and because we simply didn't care to be there. Sister-in-law called us wanting congratulations, but we told her we simply didn't care. and that if she was still insisting we change our baby's name, then she'd be in for some big disappointment, because we were not. Sister-in-law demanded I put my wife on the phone, but it was already on speaker, and my wife spoke up and said she agrees with me entirely. We weren't changing the name. Sister-in-law hung up on us, but soon started sending emails with text walls of names, even suggesting similar ones. I responded back that the name was from my grandfather, and that's why we were not changing it. They shut up, and we didn't hear from her again till after our son was born. 2 months later, we were blessed with our son. He came out perfect, and we named him just as we had intended. Well, no surprise, my sister-in-law called us a few days after the birth to scream in our ears that we had copied her son's name. I pointed out that she was the real copycat, since she had no familial ties to the name and we did. And anyone who looks at our family trees could see that. Then my wife spoke and said after the attempted theft of her grandmother's jewelry, she no longer considered sister-in-law her sister and would have nothing to do with her nephew either. For months, we were bombarded with messages and emails from my wife's side of the family. Half were on our side after finding out the whole story, the other half were not. And sister-in-law's baby daddy, true to his word, showed up at my door to make me sorry. I'm not sure what his plan was, but I pretty much towered over him. I'm 6'1" and well built from regular exercise and 3 trips to the gym a week. He, on the other hand, was very skinny and about 5'6", with a baby face that was badly hidden by a slim beard. I told him my house has cameras and to get off my property and never come back. He just yelled at me and drove off in his beat-up old car. Sister-in-law and mother-in-law called us from a different number to yell at me for making sister-in-law's baby daddy feel emasculated. I didn't even threaten the man. I just told him to leave and not to come back. And if he didn't want to feel emasculated, then he shouldn't have come knocking. Then they tried to bring up the issue of the baby name again and demanded we change our son's name as he's so young, so there's still plenty of time to do it. We held our ground and told them that they were bonkers to still think they were in the right after they copied our choice of name just to try and get one over on us. I said sister-in-law didn't even name her son out of love, but out of spite, just to try and stick it to my wife for no good reason. Then my wife called them both out on the way she was treated growing up, how entitled sister-in-law and mother-in-law have always been, and how she was glad to leave them far behind, and she wants nothing from them and they won't have anything from us. That left sister-in-law sobbing, and mother-in-law called me a royal jerk before hanging up the phone. There was no contact again for a little while, till sister-in-law called us again sometime later to bitterly tell us we had won. She and her baby daddy got in a huge fight and he left. He was apparently very sore that sister-in-law didn't let him even give their son a middle name from his family. And he said he was sick of the BS and wanted his son named after him and not some guy he wasn't even related to. Sister-in-law finally caved and they got the boy's birth certificate reissued with a completely new name, which cost sister-in-law around $500, or so she claims. Sister-in-law then demanded we at least compensate her for the name change, plus another $100 for the emotional damage, as now she's going to have to get used to calling her son by a different name. We laughed and said this would have never happened if she hadn't stole our baby name to begin with, and we didn't owe her anything. Since then, we've been no contact with sister-in-law and mother-in-law. But my father-in-law, who's a very nice man and divorced from mother-in-law for obvious reasons, would come by often and loves his grandson. From what he and other relatives told us, the situation between sister-in-law and her baby daddy was pretty tumultuous, but we don't care. Not our monkeys, not our circus. Am I the jerk for evicting him and his 13-year-old daughter? My boyfriend, who's 34, of 3 years just moved into my 32 female 3-bedroom home 5 months ago. This home has been in my family for the past 70 years. I have a 5-year-old son and my boyfriend has a 13-year-old daughter. I made sure I moved all of my stuff out of my office and put it in the loft so she could have her own bedroom. I think it was about a month into him living here that his daughter wanted to move in with us full-time, as she doesn't have her own bedroom at her mom's. I was completely fine with this. Anyways, I started running into a lot of problems not even a week after she moved in full-time. She became really entitled and demanding, like demanding that my son trade rooms with her because it has a bigger closet, and pitched a fit when I said no. or demanding we buy her expensive clothes or makeup because I'm a real estate agent and I have loads of money. Call me crazy, but I'm not about to drop $120 on a pair of ripped up jeans or drop $200 on 3 pieces of makeup. Her dad works, but his income is significantly less than mine, so she really just expected me to be the one who spoils her rotten. Or pushing her plate of food away and saying, "I'm not eating that, but you can cook me something else." I can deal with her childish tantrums and slamming doors, but she has now started to put holes in my walls, and my boyfriend makes excuses saying he used to do the same thing and she will grow out of it. She torments my son. If he says anything to her, she literally always responds with, "Oh, you're talking to me? Swap rooms with me and I will think about responding." Her dad literally never attempts to correct her behavior, and I'm told I'm being too harsh if I do. The tip of the mountain for me here was 2 weeks ago. There was a foul smell coming from her room, so I asked her to clean it because you couldn't see the floor. She said, No, it's my room, so I don't see why you have any say on how I treat my personal space." Her father actually agreed with her. 3 days later, the smell had become so bad that I lost it. I told her to clean it or she was moving out. This was after I saw at least 6 used personal hygiene products thrown throughout her room, as well as half-eaten food and moldy drink cups. She starts crying and saying I'm treating her like she is Cinderella and I'm acting like an evil stepmom. I told my boyfriend either he handles it or they're both gone. He clearly didn't believe me because he told me that I needed to lighten up because his daughter is having a rough time transitioning and being away from her mom. I gave it a week. Nothing changed. I went and got an eviction notice drawn up and gave them 30 days to vacate my property and told him he's lucky I'm not suing for damages. He says I'm the jerk for throwing away 3 years because I can't handle not having my own way. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Oh heck no. He's a bad father for letting his daughter behave that way and then getting angry at you for putting your foot down on her greedy and disgusting behavior. Yeah, bye. Like father, like daughter. You're definitely not the jerk here. I don't know why you would think otherwise. So what if she has to share a room with a sibling when she moves back in with her mom? It's not like she's homeless. I mean, I feel like maybe she'd benefit from therapy and learning some empathy, but this is so beyond the pale for a parent to deal with, especially when she's allowed to get away with it. In addition, this type of behavior is something your son should not be witnessing, let alone be around someone so out of control they're putting holes in your home and making at least one room a near biohazard. I'd also be worried about how your now ex-boyfriend would treat your son. Not the jerk. He's not parenting her. A parent steps in and protects both kids, and he's allowing his daughter to mistreat what would have been a sibling. That's not remotely acceptable, let alone the amount of disregard this child has for any authority figure. She has anger problems and thinks it's perfectly acceptable behavior to damage property when she's upset. She's not a toddler, but she sure is acting like it. You have your son's emotional health to worry about. They are not homeless, they have their mom's house or other family to turn to. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you evict him and his daughter or not? Please let us know.
I'd call the authorities is what I'd do. That little animal needs to be in a cage.
Am I the jerk for telling my dad that if he chooses to attend my stepbrother's graduation, then he better forget about me? I'm an only child, and my 18 female parents divorced when I was 8. My dad remarried when I was 12, and for a while everything was fine. But after a few years of living there with them, I started to notice that my dad preferred my stepbrother, who's 13 now. They did more things together and started to ditch me to go to his games, his plays, his tournaments. For every 10 things I invited him to, he only attended 1, maybe 2. His wife always gave excuses. Her son is younger than me. They are really close. His dad is not involved, and told me that at least I was lucky to have a dad with me, and specifically one who was willing to share his love. Well, my mom told him sad crap, and gathered all the things to aim for sole custody when I was 13 and won it. Only then I saw my dad being hurt for me being taken away. I started to spend some time with my dad, but only if he picked me up to do it. He still missed most of my things, and I've always resented him and his other family for it. Since this is my last year, I had a lot of significant activities. I had my last debate, my last volleyball game. I won best essay in my class, got into best 20 alumni, and finally went to pick my prom dress. Some, if not all of these things, he missed because he was working or attending something regarding his family, and I can't have it anymore. My graduation is December 15th, the same as my stepbrother's elementary school, and when I told Dad, he said that he would see if he could make it, which meant he wouldn't, so I came clear. I said that while graduating elementary school is nice and yay for him, I'm graduating high school and I'm on my way to university, so he can't really compare those things. And if he chooses my stepbrother's graduation, he better forget about me. His wife flipped and told me that I was taking my stepbrother's dad away from a big day and I was being a spoiled brat. I told her that I couldn't be a spoiled brat if I was being ignored the whole time and that I wasn't talking to her. My dad looked shocked, so I said that he could be there for once or he can miss forever and left. But now that I'm cooled off, I'm starting to feel bad. I love my dad to pieces. I just want him there for me too, and I surely don't want to hurt my stepbrother. I was wondering if I was the jerk for acting how I did because he's paying half of my college fund and I gave him an ultimatum. Plus, my dad is not prone to confrontation while my mother and I are. Not the jerk. Your ultimatum might have been a little bit intense, but I don't blame you for it. Years of observing and experiencing neglect wears on a person. You're 100% right. An elementary graduation doesn't compare to a high school one. Don't let anyone gaslight you into believing that your milestone doesn't trump an elementary school graduation. Your stepmom sounds like a nightmare, and she's probably been more behind your father's time management than you realize. Her disillusion that your dad has more parental responsibility to her son than he does to you is bananas. If you feel like you need to clear the air with your dad, I would suggest speaking to him in a place free of your stepmom and being ready to lay all of this on the table for him to see. He must have had the impression that his absence hasn't been bothering you, but I think it's time he woke up. Not the jerk. Not to hijack your story, but I went through something similar. My dad was in the military and started a second family after he and my mother divorced. He spent his leave time with them. When my older brother graduated, he didn't show up. When my graduation was coming, he told me he could not come because he had to take classes for work. I fell apart. I told him I didn't have to understand because I had done nothing but understand for 11 years. I told him I deserved to have him there, and it wasn't my fault that he had missed so much. He was stunned. He also came to my graduation. Our relationship improved tenfold. We are very close now. I share this because it is somewhat similar to your experience. I don't know what would have happened if he hadn't come, but I know I would not have regretted calling him out. It isn't your fault that your stepbrother's father passed. It isn't your fault that your graduation and his event happened on the same day. You do not deserve to miss out on having your father there. Not the jerk. My dad did a bit of the same. Never showed up for anything concerning us. Never had money for us. Never took the time to make time for us, but he would do it all when he had stepkids. When he had stepkids, he became neglectful to his biological kids and would go back to being more attentive when single, which was rare. Fast forward nearly 15 years after my mom got full custody of me, and we are extremely low contact. We wish each other happy birthday by text. That's it. He doesn't know my medical history and doesn't care. Doesn't know where I live now after I lost my previous apartment to a fire where he had a girlfriend at the time and made sure I knew I couldn't go live at his place even if he had 3 empty bedrooms. I never asked and wouldn't have considered an invite, but still. He knows I'm engaged because his brother saw the announcement on Facebook and refused to meet my fiancé. Heck, I'm pregnant and don't intend to tell him. His neglect made both of us stop caring, and sometimes he asks my brother why. Why don't I reach out? Why don't I care? And I really don't care. When I needed him, he was neglectful, and why would I care now that I don't need him? It's a natural progression. You are fighting for this lack of care not happening in your relationship. I never did. You're putting your sanity on the line to keep him in your life, but relationships are a two-way street, and you just reminded your dad of that. You cannot be the only one to try, the only one to send invitations, or the only one to care. He needs to realize that before it's too late. But I would look into therapy right now for yourself to talk about those fears he won't show up and about this unhealthy relationship. You need to learn to set boundaries in a healthy, non-emotional way because yelling ultimatums is not healthy and can backfire on you. All in all, you deserve better, and your dad is a blind idiot that needs a kick where the sun don't shine. You can use extension cords. A few years ago, I was looking at a garage rental space for a workshop. I met with the landlord and everything looked great, Except that there was only one outlet in this huge space, and it was at the completely wrong end of the building. I asked the guy about the electric, explaining I needed to run tools. He said, "Yeah, that's fine, and I won't charge you for electric." I said, "Okay, awesome. Is there any way I can have another outlet added further out in the space?" He seemed very confused and asked why I couldn't just use extension cords. I explained that I'd have to run one over 100 feet and it would cross over the garage door entrance and I'd be worried about the resistance tripping the breaker, which I didn't have any access to. Again, he seemed very confused. I simplified my explanation again, figuring he didn't know much about electrics, and he said, "Okay, we can definitely talk about adding an outlet." So, with my electrical concerns addressed, I agreed to come back the next day to put down a deposit and sign the lease. The next day I arrive, check in hand, and once again ask him about the electric. He again seems very confused with my issue, again asking why I can't just use extension cords. I patiently explain again, this time saying, "Well, the junction box is right here. I could just run another line and I'll do everything to code." He says no, saying he doesn't want me messing with the electric. I figured he's concerned with insurance, so I say, what if I hired an electrician to do it and paid him for it? It would make the space more attractive to future tenants. But again, he disagreed, and this time said, "I think you should just use extension cords." At this point, I was torn. I wanted this space. It was a reasonable price and size, but the electric was very important as well. I pushed the issue one more time, but again he wouldn't relent and said, "I don't want anyone messing with the electrical." Okay, fine. Me. "Would you mind if I hung up the extension cords on the top of the wall so it's out of the way?" Him. "Yeah, sure, that's fine." Me. "So it's okay if I screw or staple the wires up?" "Yeah, absolutely. No problem." Okay. So I signed the lease and a few days later went to the hardware store. Bought 250 feet of 12 by 3 Romex, electrical house wire for those not familiar, an outlet box, an outlet, and a pack of wire staples, and a heavy-duty plug end. I looked up the local electrical code and went to town. I wired up an extra outlet just as an electrician would, complete with to-code wiring placement and staples and all, and then ran it to the existing outlet and terminated it into the heavy-duty plug. I effectively made a really nice extension cord. This worked perfectly, never popped the breaker, and was a lot safer than running a random extension cord across the building. The best part was his reaction. He didn't notice until I was about to leave, and I asked him if he wanted me to take it down. He said, "Wait, you did that? I thought that was just wiring that was already here." Then when I pointed out to him that he could just have it spliced into the junction box by an electrician, he was impressed and said, "No, that's fine. You can leave it." Am I the jerk for admitting to my husband that I wasn't actually happy on our wedding day? I, 30 female, have been with my husband for 7 years and married for 4 of them. I love him and I'm genuinely happy with our marriage and the life we've built together with our kids. I was happy the day he proposed. I was happy during our honeymoon. We've had our ups and downs ever since, but overall I would say that I was happy. Although I wasn't happy during the planning and actual wedding. Why? Because it wasn't the wedding I wanted. A few months into the engagement, my husband's grandmother was diagnosed with cancer and wasn't expected to live long. Our wedding was predicted to be the last big family event that she would ever attend. Of course, I felt sad and was more than willing to change the date of the wedding to better suit her needs. But what I was not expecting was that it would become her wedding, and I was to be treated like a figure on a playset. She picked out the venue, the color scheme, the food, music, the flowers, and even my dress. It all started out as subtle suggestions, but when I started to try and put my foot down, I was called a heartless bridezilla who couldn't honor a dying woman's request. And the fact that they were paying very little into the actual wedding would be a jerk thing to bring up. After a fight, my husband was told to reconsider the engagement if I couldn't do this one thing, and how a wedding was more important to me than actually becoming a part of the family. Knowing that I'd never win, I sat in my car and cried for an hour, mourning the loss of the wedding I wanted, and in the end, let the in-laws have their way. I didn't even attend further meetings to discuss the planning and left both the bridal shower and bachelorette party early. Once the actual day arrived, I swallowed my disappointment and just went through the motions. Since then, my sister and best friend each had their weddings, and I was maid of honor for both and was excited each time. I took my role very seriously and had a lot of fun. My cousin is getting married and asked me to be her maid of honor, and I jumped at the chance. Recently, I've been spending hours on the phone and Zoom putting together a planning binder. My husband took note of my enthusiasm and made a joke about missing that energy on our day and brushed it off. After that, I cut down my wedding planning in his presence, but he wouldn't let up, citing that we don't keep any wedding photos out, that I got rid of my dress as soon as I could, and how I looked so much more happy at someone else's wedding than our own. He wouldn't let up, and eventually we got into a fight where I finally confessed that while I love him, I hated our wedding. My husband is now hurt and giving me this silent treatment. Am I the jerk? Edit. I stepped away for a little bit, but I'm already getting so many wonderful comments and messages. Thank you so much for validating my feels, although there are some things that I wanted to clear up first. 1. My husband's grandma passed a few months after we came back from the honeymoon, and she recounted our wedding as being one of the happiest moments of her final days, so I made the decision to not bring up how much it wasn't a good day for me, so my husband and I never really talked about our wedding in this way until now. 2. While I am into super planner mode for my cousin's wedding, I'm strictly adhering to the bride and groom get final say rule, because I don't want to make others feel how I did. Hence the binder, so if they shoot down one suggestion, we've got 3 others. Not the jerk. I just don't understand. Even the dress? Like, when they told you the dress they wanted you to wear and you said no, they called you a bridezilla? Did you not respond with, just to understand, I'm the bride. It's my wedding. Am I really not allowed to choose the dress I'm going to get married in? I'm a bridezilla because I want to wear a dress at my wedding that I like and choose myself? Did any of you not choose your own dress at your own weddings? I have no issue with grandma choosing things as well, but she got to plan her own wedding and wasn't called a bridezilla. Is my opinion at my own wedding really less? It's great that you moved up the wedding for her, but your husband is the jerk for not protecting you, for not putting his foot down. Ask him if he knows anyone else in his family that didn't get to choose their own wedding dress. Not the jerk. Every time you tried to have something of your wedding for yourself, you were gaslit with guilt to make you conform to what they wanted. You're allowed to be upset over that. Your husband still doesn't understand this. Tell him, shoe on the other foot, and hypothetically, it's my mom passing, and everything you want for our wedding is denied because it's not what she wants. She picks the color, your suit, every important detail, and you're not allowed to have an opinion because she's passing. You're basically a doll that's getting dressed up and going through the motions of a day that you thought you would have had more of a hand in considering it's your darn wedding. Then try and see it from my point of view.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.